Yeah, it's
Oh, did
all
you spill
nicer.
some?
Yeah.
So this one is yours.
Yeah.
So don't let me take that one.
Our reading.
Our reading material. Yeah,
homework.
we have nothing to do. Yeah. Good bedtime reading.
I have to finish doing it. I have to read that now.
All right, it is 7:06. The board previously met in closed session. Under C1, C12, C2,
C10.
C10. Like a roll call, please.
Mr. Riddle,
Present.
Mr. McBride,
Present.
Miss Hannah,
Yes.
Miss Callahan Wozniak here, Miss Leguizamo,
Present.
Miss Gonzalez,
Here.
President Ewing.
Here. All right, we do have all board members present. I'd like a motion to resume open session.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Riddle, second by Mr. McBride. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. All right, we are now back in open session. All right, Pledge of Allegiance. I'm sorry, I'm gonna ask Miss Hannah, I see her in the audience, if she'd be so kind as to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sorry, that was me.
That was you, Miss Hannah.
That's the remix.
Okay, go ahead, Miss Hannah. If you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, it is. All right, we now have President's report. I did send, is Mr. Alajakis here? I know I sent it late, so if we can get that pulled up, please. And while we get that pulled up, I first want to welcome you all to Board of Education meeting. Thank you for your attendance. We are here in person as well as live on YouTube. We do ask that members in the audience do keep their mask on as we are observing those rules. We thank you for coming out, and we know that you're here is because you care, just like we care about the important work that is raising the future generation of our students. Have a very brief presentation that they are pulling up. And that works. So if we scroll down, just want to remind everybody of our mission, which is educating students for the world of tomorrow is our top priority. Through mobilization of the entire community, we will challenge, teach, and inspire our students. We will provide the resources to serve each of our students, expecting excellence from all involved. We will deliver an exciting education and a safe learning environment that celebrates our diversity and similarities and a spirit of unity and respect. We scroll down. Want to remind the Board of Education about our unity of purpose. We affirm the unique role of public education, whereby each community collectively pools its resources for the common good through the education of its students. Therefore, we seek to uphold and improve public education for our community. As board members, we want to build trust and move the district forward. We want to become an effective team. We want to understand our individual jobs and collective responsibilities. We want to be a team with a common focused direction. We want to create a district culture that supports positive change. We want to perpetuate a positive district culture that survives in the face of board member and staff turnover. We have our expectations, which is that the common belief that everyone has good intentions. We want to create a safe environment for productive exchange of ideas. We will not always agree, but we do want to remain cordial. We'll keep going. You all know those expectations. I want to again commend H.R. McCall Elementary School. Tomorrow, because of the pandemic, they were not able to celebrate their Blue Ribbon School. So the entire school will be celebrating at the Genesee Theater tomorrow. We're excited for that accomplishment and what it means, right? There are not many Blue Ribbon schools in the nation. It's a very distinct honor. And we know that Principal May, along with her entire team in the district, worked very, very hard to achieve that recognition. And so we're looking forward to celebrating with them tomorrow at the Genesee Theater. And if we want to give it up for Ms. May and the McCall team. Yesterday, the board met for board member development. It was around team building. And so the key takeaways, right? How do we move from storming and norming to performing? And that's what we want to move to as a governance team, is making sure that we are doing what's needed for students. And the key takeaways is that trust is the key to building that. We need to learn how to trust one another and move forward in unity in that way. Communication is also key, and accountability is key. Accountability of one another and for ourselves. And I'll put walk dogs on there, but I'll talk about that later. If we can continue. So just in closing, I do want to address something that I stated, and this was at the last meeting in which we received our beginning of year data, and it was around where our students currently are. And I made a comment that I believe was either misunderstood, and so I don't want there to be any misunderstanding. And it was related to the data. I referring to the achievement gap as racist, right? And so it's not the data. The data is the data. The data shows us where we are. What I was referencing is the terms that we use, calling learning loss, achievement gap. I believe that is deficit-based language and implies that our students lack. I believe that this mindset and terminology is racist. This pandemic disproportionately impacted our students. I want them to be grade level ready, but I also have to be honest that the systemic issues that existed prior to the pandemic and were exacerbated by this pandemic still impact their learning outcomes. The data is the data. We've seen it, and now we need to work on plans and provide resources to improve it. Again, the data is not racist. The achievement gap is real, but it's also argued that the continual measuring of our students is often used to degrade the aptitude and intelligence of Black and brown minds and legally exclude Black and brown bodies. Our students are competent, our students are capable, our students are intelligent. These assessments are one data point, but they don't tell the entire story of who our students are. And so I hope that better clarifies my comments. And again, it wasn't intended to say anything except for that we keep referring to the COVID slide, and it exists, but our students were out of school for a year. They're coming to us with all types of challenges. And so to put an assessment in front of them and then to either shame our teachers because of that assessment in order to shame the board or the parents because of those assessments, I think is the wrong approach. What we need to do is accept where our students are, and then we need to build a plan that further improves upon where they are. So the other thing I want to mention is we discussed is obviously with the pandemic, what are we going to do at Lincoln Center? We've been hearing about crowding concerns. We've been hearing about, just newer and updated facilities. And so we put the Washington former First Midwest Building Bank project on hold. And so I've been hearing from board members that they do want to re-engage with that project. And so that will be something that we will need to create a plan and start talking about in the near future. Our Destination 2022 strategic plan ends next year. So I also will be talking to the board about where we're going and what our vision is for our district. We need to plan beyond 2022 over what will be happening during the next 5 years. We had a pandemic that came in, and we know, again, it's no excuse. We were moving in a better direction as evidenced by our Blue Ribbon School, by our commendable school, by some of the gains that we were starting to see, especially at the elementary school level. We know we keep talking about the high school and what we need to do there, as well as our middle school redesign, which was right in the middle of 2019 and 2020. So if we want to continue to see our students achieve, we have to address how this pandemic has impacted them, but we need to get back to the work of educating our students and moving this district in a positive direction. And I believe that we do that with our new strategic plan that will take us through the year 2027. And so along with board concurrence, I want to start having those conversations with the superintendent and start the process for creating that strategic plan that will guide us over the next 5 years. That concludes my board. And the one thing I wanted to mention is it's been on social media. I see Mr. McIntyre in the back of the room. I see Deputy Moulton in the back of the room. And we had a group which was Man Up. And Man Up literally started 2 weeks before we had to shut our schools down due to the pandemic. And this was men from the community who got together who said we were tired of talking about the problems and we actually wanted to do something to solve it. Mr. Christensen, or not Christensen, Mr. Thompson, who I don't see in the audience this evening, is a part of our FACE department and has been talking about walk dogs. And so I would like to kickstart that process, bringing those stakeholders back together, Man Up, to see how we can get back into our schools and provide some support as a community, is because it really does take a village. So I'd like to see that happen sooner rather than later and look forward to those ongoing discussions. With that, we're going to move down to special recognitions and presentations. So we do have a presentation from the superintendent.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our board meeting this evening, and I'm glad to see that we have so many staff. I know that you've been showing up and giving us your concerns, and I know my team has been sitting at the bargaining table working through some MOUs and trying to be very responsive to your concerns because safety is our top priority. As a result, we have done some walkthroughs through the high school, have looked at some other incidents. What I've had my team do at this time is look at some discipline incidents at each of our schools. And I'm going to ask the area superintendents to come at this time to look at it. As you know, the endeavor of the face mask is all of our responsibility. When I walk through schools, I'm reminding kids to put up face masks. My staff is, security is, custodians. I mean, we just got to keep reminding them, especially our little guys when they're falling off their faces, etc. And as you know, security, teachers, you're our first line of defense because they're in front of you. So I asked my team to take a deep dive to see exactly how many referrals have been issued for face masks at each of our schools so we can actually look at some of the data and see what we're up against to see how we can support. So we're going to look at that data this evening, and then the area superintendents are going to go back with their principals and discuss how we can add layers of support to the work that you're doing in our buildings, not only for our teachers, for our paras, our securities, custodians, etc. But as you know, we're in the midst of a pandemic, and we have to work together as we did when we weren't in school, as we are in school, and just keep enforcing the face mask. And I don't need to tell you this, you know, there's many ideologies on whether we should be wearing them or we shouldn't be wearing them. However, it is a mandate in District 60 that everyone must wear a face mask, as you see the Board of Education wearing their face masks and modeling that we should all have our face mask up in the proper placement throughout our meetings to keep everyone safe from COVID-19 and any variant. So at this time, I'd like to ask our area superintendents to please come up. And thank you for attending this evening.
Good evening. Is it on? Yes. Okay. Sorry, couldn't hear. Good evening, Board of Education, Superintendent, members of the community, my colleagues. Thank you for being here this evening. Mr. Clarence Berry and I are here tonight to go over some of the Q1 behavior data as of October 12th. So we pulled this data approximately a week and a half or so ago. And so this presentation will cover the data for the first quarter of school. It will show the number of referrals made per school for the most frequent behavior events. And just to clarify some of the terminology that we are using, a referral is entered in Infinite Campus by a teacher or staff member when there is a student behavior occurring that is not managed within the classroom and administrative support is needed. Mr. Berry is Area 1 and I'm Area 2, so I'll have Mr. Berry speak to his Area 1 data and we'll go back and forth.
Okay. For Area 1, we did look at disrespect, physical fighting, disruption, and insubordination for all schools. These are more of the top concerns at each one. And as you can see on the graphs at each school, we represented by the number of incidents and referrals that were received at each school. So this represents the Area 1 elementary schools, and we have addressed those concerns. One school had some major things, but we have worked through those issues as well. So that was representing Glenflora, Glenwood, Greenwood, Hyde Park, Little Fort, McCall, and Washington. And we had very few incidents at the elementary. Naturally, we have more at middle school and high school.
For Area 2, same data points: disrespect, disruption, physical fighting, controlled substance, and then insubordination. This is just for elementary schools in Area 2: Carmen, Clark, Cook, Clearview, North, Oakdale, Whittier, and Lyon. And again, the numbers on top represent the number of referrals, not necessarily the number of students. It could be students who have had a couple referrals. The same student may have had a few different referrals based off of some needs that they have, and their behaviors were presenting out. And so those are the numbers currently that we have for the elementary schools in Area 2 around the major points of behavior so far.
This is the behavior data for the middle school, still representing the same 4 areas. As noted, the numbers are a little bit more prominent in middle school versus the elementary, but still not extremely bad for the first quarter data compared to previous years. So this is showing that we are working on the issues. We're working on some things. We're also working to make sure that we're providing that social emotional support. Some of this data is a little bit stronger coming back from the pandemic, so we had to really work with students to engage with them of getting settled back into school. And I'm proud for all of the SEL work that is going to support our students as well. And this represents Smith, Benny, Lewis, Juarez, and Abbott.
All right. This is a combination slide of our high schools. So we have AOEC, Brookside, and Washington campus displayed. And you can see that the Brookside campus around insubordination has been the highest area, where we have had to reestablish expectations, routines, and procedures for our youngest high school students. And so that has been an area of focus in terms of passing periods, in terms of redirecting when necessary, and kind of relearning how to make sure that we are listening to adults within the building. And that has been an area of growth and challenge at Brookside, but we are continuing to work through supports for students and reinforce expectations, especially in less structured settings such as hallways.
One of the last areas that we looked at was masks, because we want to make sure that we're being in compliant, that we're keeping everyone safe in the building. So for Area 1 out of the 12 schools that I support, we only had 3 instances of referrals. So that is good. That's showing that our students are meeting the expectation, even though they may have to be reminded to pull it up. They naturally drop when you walk sometime, but we're glad to see that these numbers are low and very minuscule.
Again, this is referrals that were entered specifically just around concerns around wearing masks, and there were 55 at the high school. I do not have that I do have it broken down by which campus. I just don't have it with me. I apologize. I can send that out at a later time. And then again, minimal referrals have been entered at the elementary and other schools within my area. And again, we are proud of the work that we know that students need to be reinforced to wear masks. We know that students need to be reminded to wear masks and to pull it up and to cover their nose. And so we are proud of the fact that although they do need reminding, and that the teachers have been working on them to be supportive as they remind students, that for the most part it hasn't escalated to the point of needing a referral, that it's been able to be managed within the classroom at the lowest level.
And the last slide that we're going to present tonight shows out of the 733 referrals for first quarter, only 62 were mass issues, which is less, around 8%. So this is showing that mass are a concern, but not as major as we thought it would be as we came back into the school year. Are there any questions?
Ms. Hannah?
Yeah, I was looking at the discipline reports that we're sent on a weekly basis. And there's a lot of infractions by students. And it's not, as you have laid out, it's all through the district. Okay, but I want to know, what have you all done in terms of reprimand? As I looked at the infractions, and I'm very familiar with the reprimand process, and when the reprimand process was being done, we had a 99.9% effective rate where the students changed their behavior and went on to do well. And I want to know, why aren't you all using the reprimand process? And I mean, why wouldn't you use something that works?
Well, Ms. Hannah, I will say we are using the reprimand, but with Senate Bill 100, the issue is to be restorative. We should not be suspending for every issue. So we have been working with the BAM, we've been working with SEL, we're working to restore behaviors, giving that counseling and support, and sometimes that takes a little time. It takes a little time.
Ms. Anna, can I go? I want to be clear. I don't want to speak for Ms. Hannah, but when she's referring to the reprimand process, it was a process which was established with the outreach department, which related to students that received what were severe infractions. So these would be fights. I know Ms. Hannah was very involved with it. Mr. McBride was very involved with it. And in lieu of expulsion, they would meet with students, walk through what their behavior was, how it was impacting the overall community, and give them a chance to get things in order. And so that was a part of restorative justice, is because it was in lieu of expulsion. So when she's saying the reprimand process, she's not referring to just reprimanding students, but an actual program that was in Waukegan Public Schools, which was she was instrumental in,
Yes.
and Mr. McBride was very involved in.
Yes.
And so that I want to make clear, that's what she was referencing.
And I have sat in those meetings with both Ms. Hannah and Mr. McBride as I was serving as principal at Lewis, and I do understand that. And they did come in, they worked one-on-one, mentoring the kids. We did some here at the Lincoln Center, as well as the school. And so we are continuing to do those as they are coming up before us.
Yes, and let me just give you one of the success stories of the reprimand process. We saw a student when he was in middle school, and he was getting ready to get expelled, okay? And after the reprimand process, he went on to do well. I was at the high school this year. He came up to me and he told me, I can't call his name, but he came up to me and he thanked me for that reprimand process that he went through, because now he is graduating this year. And he thanked me for that reprimand. And that, in spite of everything, that's the most important thing. When the students are able to change their behavior, it doesn't take that much time. It takes the correct words. And you sat in them with me, and the correct words do work. And so my concern is, I saw a lot of disturbing discipline infractions here. And this is not acceptable, not in my opinion. It's totally unacceptable. And even to the point where physical fighting for against teachers, that is totally unacceptable. And I don't know how we can just say, oh, will you go to ISS? Okay, that is something that never took place in our district. You put your hands on a staff member, you had dire consequences. And that's not happening based on what I have been seeing on the infraction reports.
And Ms. Hannah, I will say we are still issuing discipline on these extreme cases. I can say for my area, and I'm sure Amanda can say for her area, we are working with the minor issues, but the major issues, we are dealing the appropriate data, discipline for those students as well.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. And I do want to state this is only for first quarter. As you know, our teachers had a lot of grace, knowing that our students have been out for 18 months getting acclimated back to school. And we know that there's a lot of social, emotional issues that our kids are coming back with. We not only see it in our schools, we see it in our communities, we're seeing it nationwide. So there has been a lot of grace extended. And I do want to thank all of our staff. I know this is being taped, for their constant reminders. We don't want it to be punitive. We want to correct behavior so our students understand the need and the safety of the mask to not only protect themselves, but to protect others, protect your family, to protect their family, et cetera, et cetera. It just goes on and on and on. And I want to thank you for all you do. I do see the, I don't want to say extreme, but I do see the numbers at Brookside, and I will state I am concerned. And I am speaking with my team right now on a plan of support. I have been looking at this now very closely for about a week and a half. As many of you know, I was a high school principal, so I'm very familiar with the high school world. And so we will be coming back, and you will be hearing more about that. You probably even be seeing a lot of my presence, not only at the Brookside High School, at the Washington campus also for support. So know that we thank you. I just wanted to put this out there. You are our first line of defense. Let's keep reminding our students, including my son, that mask has to be up. It's for your safety, it's for everybody's safety. And if they're not listening, please do not feel that you cannot refer them, because maybe that one-on-one conversation with the dean or the principal will change behavior. This is not what this is about, but it's about laying out what we're up against, what we're seeing, where we can supply supports to the area, and where we can get through this pandemic together as we did when we were remote. So thank you for the area superintendents.
And Ken, I have another discipline question. While we're talking about discipline, I think that that there has been a very detrimental misunderstanding and misinterpretation of SB 100, and there needs to be some in-services or some workshops done around SB 100 so that the belief that students can't be disciplined, students can't be suspended. We need to get a clear and understanding of what SB 100 actually is and how it affects our jobs as educators, administrators, and until we do that, okay, we're going to continue to have the infractions that we have been seeing. Okay,
Brandon?
Go ahead, Mr. McBride.
I just want to elaborate behind what Ms. Hannah is saying. Some of the disciplinary and insubordinate issues, it disturbs me to the point to where as though kids got in the back of their mind now that can't nothing happen to me and I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And they're not just saying that, they're exhibiting that every day. And I know the staff, you got to see it. And I know you feel like your hands are tired and you know, what can I do? And Ms. Hannah bring up a great point. We have gotten to the point with the SB 100, we said that you got to go to every extreme before you can put a kid out of school. And you had to take every measure that you can to keep from putting them out of school. But I think that we really haven't done as much as we can do in terms of trying to instill some character defects, defects that these kids have to try to correct that, or moral defects that these kids to try to correct that. Because right now, even not just in the school, even in the community, our kids and got tombstone minds, and they don't care anything about anything. They just do anything they want to do. And what Ms. Hannah is saying with revisiting the SB 100 and having someone come in to really tell us how far we can go, because I don't think we have really put our foot down like we should do when kids do things that they ain't got no business doing. We just kind of overlook it and we kind of spank them on the hand and they turn around and do the same thing over. But somewhere along down there's got to be some consequences, not just for kids, for adults as well. If you don't have no consequences, you'll keep doing the same thing over and over. And I support Ms. Hannah in that respect and what she's talking about. Other than that, we'll keep having disruption in our buildings. It is not fair to those students that's trying to learn, also the staff that's trying to teach the students. So that's my disposition on that.
that's right. That's right.
And this is what, as a board that has done work around restorative justice practices, it's surprising to me that we continue to say that suspension is the appropriate response. So what I'll say is that there are behaviors in which students should be suspended. However, we also have to make sure that we have the appropriate places in place, because if you suspend them for 3 days, guess what? They're coming back on day 4. And if you don't change the behaviors, you're going to suspend them again. And we know what the data shows us about kids that we suspend. So it's not keep them in necessarily the classroom, because it is impacting other students. But how are we as a district investing in it? And again, I don't want us to just say consequences and automatically equate consequences with suspension. We had a principal right before the pandemic at Miguel Juarez, who got up before us and gave a presentation of what he was doing in his building and how it was impacting. And we all commended him on how the numbers looked. And I asked a very specific question, and it was, has the behavior changed? And he said, no. Our reaction to the behavior is what's changed. They're middle schoolers. They're going to do what middle schoolers have done, but how we approach it is what's different. And so I want us to remember is that I 100% agree that our students need consequences, our students need to be held accountable, our students need to know that their actions have consequences. I just don't want a knee-jerk reaction that thinks that consequences, and the only appropriate consequence, is always getting them out of school. And so I will go on the record and say that. May not be popular, but that is my belief. I fundamentally believe it. We have to support our students, And that means money, it means resources, and it means actual support, not just keep them in the classroom. But suspension is not a solution. It's not.
And I want to add to that, because being one of our board, it doesn't mean that we're always going to agree on the same strategy, right? Obviously, whatever is the consensus is what we honor and what we honor moving forward. But I also embrace Brandon's point. If I get it, I don't want our teachers and our staff to go into the classroom scared of the students. I don't want the students themselves to not look forward to school. And we have those kids who, because home isn't going right, because someone is getting on their nerves in the hallway, they blow up. And this is not me condoning that, because I think it is unacceptable. You know, all of us go through hard things and we learn to control our emotions, but there's a lot of kids who do not grow up understanding that. And having grown up in a household in which that was very much the case, I understand the factors that contribute to someone developing that mindset. So we do punish them. We already do punish them. We know which students are not doing well in our schools. We know who we're pushing out. So to reiterate the sense that we gotta have a firmer hand, we gotta do this, we gotta do that, it's kind of contrary to the reality that we are doing it. It may not seem like it, but the numbers and our statistics don't lie. The other thing that I want to say is we're up a lot of systemic issues, and I said this in a previous meeting. When you're looking at the mountain, right, from the ground, from the valley, your immediate environment is what matters to you most, right? And so I easily understand why a lot of us want things to immediately change. We want our students to turn their life around from one night to the next, come in class like brand new, but that's not gonna happen. And that's why strategically, what we have invested in as a board is these supplemental partnerships. We need to not, if I impact the life of a student, that's gonna be my singular impact, and that's gonna be good enough for me. But I'm one person. I need to get all the kids on board, because the most important people in their lives aren't even gonna be the teachers. They're not even gonna be the staff. They're gonna be each other, and the relationships they establish with each other, the friendships that they build. That's why I want, like, probably something that we've talked about already, gonna continue to revisit at some point. That's why I wanna see the campuses reintegrated with the grades. I want the freshmen to establish senior relationships, people who say, hey, what you're doing ain't worth it, there's better things forward, mentorship relationships, and then investing in these partnerships with people who can connect with them on a non-academic level, so that they get invested in classes.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. And as you know, as a district, we have been cited by ISB for disproportionately suspending our African American males more than any student in our school. And we've been cited by ISB. Ms. Placencia didn't make that citement. The Illinois State Board of Education has cited us and has asked us to create a corrective action plan. So my stance is exactly the same as the board president. We have to use progressive discipline. We have to provide the supports, and if we need to provide more supports, we'll provide them. I never told anyone not to suspend. I never told no one to not write a referral, but we do have to be conscious and equitable in our approach for all students. And we know over 18 months, if we talk about equity, everyone knows my son goes to school in this district. Everyone did not live in the conditions my son did for 18 months, and he suffered depression. Some of our students didn't eat. Some of our students were at home. Our parents were unemployed. They're coming back with a lot of trauma. We're coming back with a lot of trauma. We lost loved ones. We lost colleagues. We lost family members. I think our board president has said it best when he says we have to have grace. We are not out of this yet, District 60. We cannot not stop working together now in the midst of this. We stood strong together for 18 months. And I'm going to stand strong with you and support you in what you need, but we have to stand strong for the parents and the community of Waukegan.
Brendan, I'm going to say one word, and I'm done. I said what I need to say about consequences and holding them accountable. That's one thing. But if I'm fighting somebody and I'm doing it on an ongoing basis, once I recognize that as a staff that this kid got a problem with fighting, what do I do? That's the problem. After the fight, there's no intervention in terms of not doing that, to teach the kid to not to do that again. That's the problem. We don't have that in place. And then when we do talk about these things, from my perspective on the board, sometimes it gets pushed up under the rug. And I'm saying that because I know Ms. Hannah asked tonight when we were talking about equity and whatnot. With all that being said, so what are we doing to solve the problem? You didn't get an answer because we're not doing anything at this point. From my understanding, is solving the problem. And Brother Blanks comes to the podium all the time talking about the behavior. But the one thing when he says at the end of the day, what are you doing to help the kid not to do what they're doing? And that's the problem. And I think that's what we need to be doing. I'm saying if you put me on 5 years probation, I'm going to violate every time because you didn't show me how to do the probation. And that's the same thing in the school. It ain't no difference when you hold a kid accountable and he got a problem, you don't give him nothing to solve the problem, he's going to do it all over again.
And one last comment, please.
Ms.
And
Hannah.
so I am requesting, with the concurrence of the board, that we get some type of workshop for our staff, our administration, and for SB 100 clarity.
100%, Ms. Hannah. So you have my support in that recommendation.
Because that's what has to take place.
We will definitely bring that to the PTAC. Mrs. Leguizamo sits on that along with Mrs. Gonzalez, and that's something we will bring to the PTAC.
When you say that, what do you mean, Superintendent?
It means that we will bring that. They look at our discipline policies, development, all of that. So we will bring that subject up at our next meeting because I'll talk to you offline about clarity around your question and your ask.
Right, because
Okay.
the staff needs to understand
Oh,
SB
that's not,
100 too.
yeah, but I'm not going to take the stance that we're implementing SB 100 wrong or reading the law wrong until I evaluate the processes that the PTAC has put together and the work that they have done over the number of years, Ms. Hannah. So what I'm saying is that I will work with the PTAC to have this conversation and we will come back to the board.
And to back up what Ms. Hannah is saying around training, I just want to give an example, and this is the superintendent knows this example, but it related to our dress code policy. Is our dress code policy was passed, and there's a first section, which is very, very clear about what can and cannot be worn.
Right.
But there's a second part of that policy, which also speaks to violations. And what teachers have told me is that we're not enforcing that second part, right? It's because we don't feel comfortable in knowing where the line is, how to draw the line, and what the information is. So it's the same thing with SB 100. It can have the greatest intent in the world, and that's what I hear my board members saying, but we have to make sure that we are effectively implementing it. And I just gave an example of the dress code policy, which it doesn't mean wear whatever you want in Waukegan Public School District 60. When it's violated, there are clear steps that you should be taking in order to address the violation. However, what I'm hearing is that that implementation is not always being done. And that's where what Ms. Hannah is requesting is workshops around development is important. So if we want to have that conversation with the PTAC and bring back a recommendation, that's fine. I just want to make sure that I'm supporting Ms. Hannah and what her request is and that we understand what it is that she's asking. And was I inaccurate, Ms. Hannah, in my representation?
No, you're right. You're right, because all of us need to know
100%.
about SB 100.
Ms. Leguizamo, and then I do apologize, board, I did not spend an hour on our first presentation. We still haven't had public comment, but it was an important discussion. Ms. Leguizamo.
No, just to add on to the conversation in regards to, for example, the dress code policy, right? The PTAC committee did come back with the recommendation around professional development for addressing the dress code policy, and they felt that that was very important, right? But this is also the reason why the board had approved the recent addition of hiring a training compliance manager, for lack of better words, because we need to understand as a board, are these professional development trainings occurring, and who is receiving it, and who still lacks those professional development training. So all of that's going to come hand in hand, and I'm waiting for the director really to get settled in a little bit more so we can start getting some board reports out of the training that's occurring throughout the district. My last comment. Thank you, Board President.
I'm listening to you, but I'm trying to understand what the training for dressing and all that stuff is.
It was an example. What Ms. Hannah's requesting with concurrence of the board was that with SB 100 PD, professional development, be advised so that we make sure that we're implementing it and everybody understands how to implement it. I was given an example of a policy, right? The policy is very clear, in my opinion. People may disagree with the policy, but it doesn't mean, what I've heard is that you can wear anything in District 60. There are violations, and when those violations occur, there's a second part which deals with enforcement. And a lot of people don't feel comfortable with the second part of that policy because they haven't been told how to address it. So the professional, and this is a direct conversation that I've had with teachers who were concerned about the dress code policy and who told me to my face that they are not enforcing it because they don't feel comfortable doing so. And so that comes from conversations with them and them saying that we want this training and better understanding and better clarity.
Well, I just think, Brandon, when we open that can of worms up, period, for kids to kind of wear what they want to wear to some degree, we open up a can of worms and then they're doing whatever they're doing whatever they want to do, and it's just kind of hard for the staff to be able to control that because girls wear what they want to wear, and they wear the way they want to wear it, and some of the things that they do are just totally disrespectful. Simple as that. I can't say too much about the boys, but I do know that the boys are involved because the boys have an opportunity to feed off the girls when the girls wear what they wear. And me, I'm just being honest, me as a man, I have pulled up to the school district. I had to turn my head because I seen things I didn't want to see. It was just so that disturbing. And I know for our male staff, shame, because I know you have to deal with that every day. But I just pulled up on, and I've been to the school quite a bit, and I see the same thing over and over and over. I really have to turn my head, to be honest with you, for what I see, because I have to shame myself when I'm looking, and that's the honest to God truth. So it's a lot of and I'm saying that, but everybody in the audience in these buildings, you guys got eyes like I got, and y'all see what I see, and you know what I'm saying. And with that, I'm gonna leave it alone.
So we're talking about this one. Can I finish and then I don't have to say nothing at the board meeting?
I'm gonna take that deal, Ms. Hannah. Remember you said it.
No, I'm telling you,
Go ahead.
Okay, and so also in reference to discipline and the partnering of the different agencies and organizations that we have spent a lot of money on. I just specifically, I want to know how many, and I see a BAM member here, I want to know how many BAM.
Ms. Hannah, the only thing I want to say is there's a SEL presentation that's coming up that should address that information, so if you want to hold it till then.
I'm gonna take that.
That works.
So if I get something else, then.
All right, so now we are moving on. Thank you. I did not plan to spend that much time. We don't have a lengthy agenda, so I'm hoping that we can get through the rest of it. We had a board workshop. You all told me that you want meetings to end in 2 hours. That is 100% up to everybody that sits around this table. With that, we have our public comment. So there's a public comment sheet in the back. Public comment, you get 3 minutes. You can address the board. This is your opportunity to address your elected officials. There is a lengthy list, so when I call you up, please come up to the podium. When your name is called, just make sure that you wait until the microphone is sanitized. I am, for transmission reasons, allowing those who are comfortable, if they choose to remove their mask at the podium, they can, and then just put it back on as soon as they are done. If you need translation services will be provided to you, and you will receive 6 minutes to allow for the board to receive the translation. We do ask that you refrain from mentioning student or staff names in your remarks, and that we, keep it as respectful as possible. The first name that I see on the list is Karen Perry. And I'm sorry, Ms. Perry, whenever you're ready, your time will start, okay?
Good evening. My name is Karen Perry, and I'm a teacher at the high school. I did my student teaching in the district, and I fell in love with our students. And I have been teaching with our district for 10 years now. I've been at the high school, and I've watched us go from the smaller learning communities where we had houses to our now separated upper and lower classmen. Within our houses, we had dedicated principal, assistant principal. We also had counselors and social workers for about 600 students at most. Essentially, we had 6 different staff members at the campus at Brookside alone that were able to manage the 2,500 students and their issues that they could be facing. Now we only have 2 deans and maybe even 1 restorative justice staff member to cover that same number of students. How is this manpower able to help us de-escalate any potential student conflict? We're also short on safety. Staff, our students know exactly when the right time and opportunity to have an altercation with each other because they know that the staff will be pulled down to the lunchrooms, and so they find that's the perfect time. We don't have enough teachers to assign hall duty because they're working 6 assignments because of our teacher shortage. Our smaller learning communities that we had deconstructed, our extra principals and staff that have been shifted in their positions, and the fact that our upperclassmen are at different buildings now were some of the best lines of defense that we had for these underclassmen. Our upperclassmen were their mentors. They helped keep our students at the younger levels accountable for their actions. And we don't have enough people to man that. And we have but 1 dean for 1,200 kids. That's not enough. I asked some of my students how they felt about their fights in the school. One of them told me that they feel that they continue to see the pride for our school decreasing each time. Another said that they don't feel safe anymore, that school is supposed to be the one place that they could feel safe no matter what. We also had the delayed purchase of our HERO program, and unfortunately that has caused havoc for tardies, more roaming in the hallway, and that continues to build up in those areas that we could de-escalate. I'm asking you, the board, to consider what changes we can make with where we spend our money and what budget items we can vote no to so that we can reallocate it to support those students, or even put the upperclassmen back with our kids, just like our other board members said. They are their mentors. These are not just students to many of us. There are children that parents are entrusting us to grow and mold into the future leaders of this world. I think of them as my family. But we as a district need to stop being reactive. We need to be proactive.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. And while we sanitize the microphone, the next name on the list, I believe this is Dina Kessler. And if I mispronounce your name, just, okay, thank you. But for everybody, if I mispronounce your name, it's not intentional, and please just correct me on the microphone.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, Ms. Kessler, your time will start.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Dina Kessler, and I teach business education at the Washington campus, and I belong to the Teachers Union. I've been a teacher at Waukegan High School since 2006. In my early years of teaching, students would roam the halls and come to class whenever they felt like it with few or any consequences. About 5 years ago, Start on Time was introduced. It was the greatest, most effective policy introduced at Waukegan High School since I've been in the district. As soon as the final bell rings for class, each teacher shuts the door. Any late students have to get a tardy pass in order to enter, and they're logged into the system as being late to class. After 3 tardies in a week, the student gets 1 detention, and after 6 in a week, they get Saturday school, which was 4 hours long. Everything was automated so that the teachers could spend as much time teaching as possible, and consequences were automatically assigned. The consequences were strictly adhered to and enforced. There were incentives created, like no tardy parties for those students who were always on time, that included ice cream, smoothies, and pizza. Our students were conditioned to be prompt. Then the pandemic hit. We returned to school, but start on time did not. As a result, we were told the students would be allowed to be up to 10 minutes late without a consequence. That's 22% of a class period. Often late arriving students will knock loudly and be disruptive as they enter the room. Teachers are required to then go back into the system and change the attendance for each late arrival, which also causes a disruption. This occurs repeatedly throughout the day. In my case, I have 180 students over 6 class periods. It has become increasingly unmanageable, to say the least. I personally asked several administrators why the Start on Time program was not in place, and I was told that the software was not purchased yet for the school year. How is that possible? We were out for 18 months with no students in the building, plenty of time to buy the program. I was at the school board last month when it announced that the Start on Time, now called Hero, was approved for purchase. That's welcome news, but it has still not been implemented. At Washington campus, the students now line up to get handwritten, illegible passes, and the teachers have to still log into the attendance system repeatedly to alter the attendance codes. There's no such system at place at Brookside that I'm aware of, but I've talked to teachers from there, and their stories are worse. It has been more than 2 weeks since we started handwritten passes to address the tardiness issue, and there have been no consequences for students with more than 6 tardies. In the past, consequences were delivered immediately. It has not taken long for the students to recognize that the current system is ineffective and unmanageable, and they continue to come to class late or walk the halls or camp out in stairwells without any consequences. Why did we stop using a system that was effective? When will Hero be fully implemented with additional staff in place to manage it? Let's work together to do what's in the best interest of the students and their education.
Thank you, Ms. Kessler. The next name, I believe, is Kaylee Jankovic. And if I'm pretty close, correct me on the microphone.
Okay. Good evening, Board President Ewing, members of the board, Superintendent Placencia. My name is Callie Jankovic, and I'm very proud to be an elementary music teacher at 2 schools in District 60, and also proud to be a member of the Teachers Union. I'm here tonight to share some of my experiences this school year related to COVID protocols, and contact tracing as a teacher who is not a grade level teacher. I teach half-time at Clark Elementary and half-time at Glenwood, and technically I only teach around 500 students between those 2 schools, but in reality I come into contact with almost 1,000 students every week, partially because Glenwood is still mixing their classes into different groups for Encore. I don't see one teacher's class. I have a fifth of each separate classroom together in one group, and then they go back to their own homerooms. It's great from a social emotional standpoint, but it's not great if you're trying to keep a virus from spreading among students who still can't be vaccinated. At the elementary level, everyone thinks the image is the classroom teacher who's with their class all day, and I don't feel the district is always taking into account the art teachers, the STEM teachers, reading support, speech pathologists, social workers, all the people who are working hard to make sure our students succeed. I feel like we've been an afterthought despite how many students we impact on a daily basis. For example, I'm only getting COVID notifications of cases at Clark. When I discovered that I was not getting them for the Glenwood building notices, I emailed my administrators and Mr. Alajakis to let them know, but there's been no change. And I now have a colleague who is forwarding them on to me to ensure I actually get them. One of my orchestra teacher colleagues, he's at 4 schools, and he didn't realize until we spoke today that he's only getting emails from one of the schools. He had had no idea there'd been cases at Glenwood with students. There was a case that I wasn't informed of, and when I asked further, I was told that it wasn't a child in one of the classes I taught, so I didn't have to worry. To which I responded, you do realize that I supervise that grade for lunch and recess, and I'm in the rooms with them for 20 minutes when they have no masks on. And that part of my schedule had been completely overlooked. Now, I absolutely know that our nurses, our contact tracers, they've been working so incredibly hard, but the sheer amount of students and staff in our schools means that even their best efforts have been falling short, especially when our youngest students are still coming to school with masks that don't fit their faces, and I spend 10 minutes tying them tighter, or a younger student has an outburst and flings his mask at me. As the weather gets colder, as we have to stay indoors more and more, I ask that the district please keep all of our teachers and staff and our varied situations and schedules in mind so we can all stay safe and devote our efforts to the education of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Junkovic. Next name is Carla Christopher.
Good evening, Board of Education, Ms. Placencia, and community members. My name is Carla Christopher. I teach math and science at the high school and am a union member. I am part of a specialized team at the high school, which has been tasked with providing instruction and support to those students on the bubble, the students who are deficient in credits but very close to qualifying for graduation. This team of teachers meets daily to address the attendance, academics, behavior, and engagement of our students, as well as to develop support mechanisms needed to help our students graduate. Recently, one of our students was absent from school for a number of days. None of the teachers knew why he was absent. We were all concerned. It wasn't until another student notified us that the student was COVID positive that a teacher went to the contact tracer, who then confirmed that the student was in fact COVID positive. There are many reasons why I'm telling you this story. First, whether vaccinated or not, exposure to COVID-19 can cause severe illness and health-related problems. If I, as the teacher, am exposed, it is my duty to make sure that I appropriately distance myself from others. Not being properly informed of the positive case in my classroom did not allow me to manage further contact. Sorry, it's hard to read. Second, many of our teachers live with spouses, parents, or children that are battling chronic health issues, and bringing potential exposure home to them could have drastic consequences. Not being properly informed strips me of the right and responsibility I have to properly protect my family. Third, students who are on extended absences as a result of a positive COVID test are losing essential instruction days because tutoring from the classroom teachers cannot start immediately if we are not informed. Our contact tracing is inadequate at best. There is no way for us to feel safe in our buildings under the current system. Notifications don't come at all, or they come too late. Board members, Ms. Placencia, community members, I beg you to listen to us. We have outlined our fears for almost 3 months, and nothing but a Band-Aid approach seems to have been applied. In response to an early request for assistance, we received a video from the district head nurse that outlined a system that is not working. A video of how the process, in theory, should work is not assistance. Students' masks are not worn properly or consistently. If you would like us to write referrals for every improperly worn mask, we can do that, but be prepared for the numbers. As winter approaches and more activities move indoors, cases are expected to rise. If COVID procedures remain status quo, with overburdened nurses trying in vain to effectively perform the duties of an entire contact tracing team, we are afraid that we will have to go remote. Evidence is clear. Students learn best when they are in school. Contact tracing and proper masking is imperative to keeping all parties safe, so students can stay where they belong, in school. We are asking for a fully staffed and implemented contact tracing plan and a clear mask policy to keep all members of Waukegan Public Schools safe. Thank you.
Next name on the list is Kate Jones.
Good evening. My name is Kate Jones, and I teach at Brookside, and I belong to the Teachers Union. I would like to begin by stating that even though things have not been easy, I am proud to be a Waukegan teacher in my 14th year of the district. I am currently in my 4th year at Brookside. My career began in 2008 at Jefferson Middle School, now John Lewis. I reference my time there to illustrate the condition of things at Brookside today. Anyone who has been in the district knows that for many years that school was, and still is, completely out of control. I requested a transfer due to the daily episodes of verbal abuse and the stress that was developing due to the complete lack of accountability or consequences for negative behavior. Administrators in the building did not create a positive learning environment and turned their backs on disruptive behavior rather than deal with it. The environment was toxic for every single person who entered the building. Unfortunately, Brookside has become such an environment. The perception that the building is not safe is quickly becoming a reality. There are a small number of students who are not interested in being part of the learning process and are corrupting the environment for the rest. Students routinely curse at and threaten teachers, and there's little being done about either situation. There is a fight nearly every single day at Brookside, and on many days there are multiple fights that occur both inside and outside of the building. Suspensions almost never happen for fighting, which used to be an automatic consequence. Fights are totally out of control. Nothing happens, and the students know this. Students know there will be little to no consequences for fighting. I myself am afraid to be in the halls during passing periods. I am concerned for my safety, and I do not leave my office until 10 minutes after the bell if it's my free period or lunch. Students roam the hallways at all times, every period, all day long. They're skipping classes, hanging out in the halls, gyms, cafeterias, pretty much doing anything they want. During class, many staff members are met with profanity-laced replies when asking students, "Why are you in the hall?" The other common reply is to be completely ignored as kids continue to walk down the hall and staff can do nothing about it because there are no consequences. If the students are directed by a teacher, safety, or administration to get to class, the pure and blatant disrespect and insubordination of the students is the worst I've seen in years. There is nothing we as teachers can do because there is virtually no support from administration on correcting student behavior. Teachers are not being given the supports they need to be able to teach every day and not be mentally and verbally and sometimes physically abused. Teachers are getting to the point where they no longer want to come to work. Morale is an all-time low, and it's only October 26th. Mental and verbal abuse of staff members that they endure on a daily basis is something that should not be accepted nor tolerated. Again, I am proud to say I'm a Waukegan teacher, but it's getting to the point where I might have to seriously consider my own mental and physical health over teaching in this district. I am saddened because I truly love my students. I love my job and I love what I do, but I will not be verbally abused when I go to work. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Next name on the list is Denise Dunlap.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Denise Dunlap. I'm a teacher at Abbott Middle School and a member of the Teachers Union. I am speaking tonight about the lack of enforcement of the tardy policy in our schools. In many of our schools, there is a very lax attitude from our students about the need to be on time to class. Most periods we see students straggle into class 5, 10, even 15 minutes or more into a class period. Students miss critical instructional time. Students miss information from the teacher. Students miss collaborative work time with their peers. On the rare occasion that a tardy student is accompanied to class by administration, what we hear is little more than, "I found this student wandering in the hall." What message does this send to the student? The student receives the message that being on time to class really isn't that important. And what the rest of the students in the class receive is the same message. When there is no enforcement of the tardy policy, students are sent the message that the expectation of being on time to class is not a priority. That very often then translates into students assuming that other expectations are not a priority. So what we see in our schools when the tardy policy is not enforced is that student behavior en masse begins to spiral downward. Educators know that along with teaching our curricular content, we are also tasked with preparing students for success in life, which includes the working world. Promptness will be an expectation that students encounter as they begin to get jobs in their mid-teens. And as our students grow older and start to support themselves and possibly others, the stakes at remaining employed grows exponentially. Another reason that there is a need for our educators, both teachers and administration, to enforce their school's tardy policy is because it will prepare our students for the working world. The bottom line is that teachers are not the only cog in the wheel of enforcing the tardy policies. Administration has a very significant role to play in this enforcement. The teachers union would like to work with administration on developing an enforceable tardy policy that helps students build habits of promptness that will lead to success in their schooling and then their life after school. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dunlap. Next name on the list is Pat Vukovic.
Okay, I'd like to thank you for making the reading and math data available to the public last week. Now it's time to focus on fixing this COVID slide. Yes, this has happened all over the country, but that can no longer be an excuse in Waukegan. Now is the time for District 60 to take the lead and use some of the $53 million COVID relief money to hire reading and math interventionists to work directly with the children in grades K through 3. Yes, we know the money must be spent within the next 2.5 years, so hire them with the contingency that these jobs are only promised for that time period. Many district dollars have already been spent buying computer programs to assist students. I do not believe this is money well spent. These same students fell behind during remote learning, which was via a computer screen. What makes you think that putting them in front of a Chromebook for more hours this year will help them grow academically when they did not grow academically last year? We need professional, certified teachers with reading or math endorsements to work face-to-face with the children. Phonemic awareness and phonics needs to be taught in small groups, in person, to make the most of the time and money spent. You have spent millions of dollars on social emotional supports this year with counseling, but for the struggling children, it is emotionally damaging to them to be in a class where the work is too difficult and it comes out as disciplinary problems. I've heard stories from teachers where children have, during the map testing, shut down, heads down, tears streaming, and they're trying to keep the COVID distance, but the poor child is just hysterical because they can't read anything that's in front of them. Let's not only support them with counseling, but also give them academic support in the form of certified teachers so they can begin to catch up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vukovic. Next name on the list is Phil Maoni.
I might have to put my readers on. Good evening to all. My name is Phil Maoni. I have been teaching and coaching at Waukegan High School for the entirety of my 28-year career, and it will be the only place that I will ever teach upon my retirement. My wife went to school here, and she's taught here for 22 years. We have a son who's a freshman at Brookside. I would like to talk about accountability. Taking responsibility for our successes is easy. The hard part is taking ownership of our failures. I have had about 8 student teachers in my career, and one of the first things I shared with them is being honest with your kids. If you don't know the answer to their question, don't fake it. Kids see through that immediately. They'll respect you for being honest and admitting, rightfully so, that you don't have all the answers all the time. It takes a lot of courage for a new teacher or anyone to do that, really. It seems to me that many of the issues facing the district over the years have magnified because of a failure to own the mistakes. One of these was eliminating the CSP on the premise that it was elitist. That was a flat-out lie. Anyone who was around will tell you, if they were being honest, another was eliminating houses at the high school. Anyone who was around will tell you, if they are being honest, that houses worked. A school within a school, counselor, social worker, psychiatrist, principal, and most importantly, a secretary, all focused on helping the teachers in each house support, nurture, and teach those kids. Was it perfect? Perhaps not, but it was a mistake to abandon that framework. We who are still around know this. The question is, will the district have the courage to own the error and fix it? And since I have a minute, on another note, no one is suggesting immediate suspension or expulsion unless it's a completely egregious activity, like a physical altercation involving, for example, what the incident that occurred just recently in Zion, a pair of scissors in the chest. We've been doing restorative justice forever in education. We just have a fancy name for it now. But I've been taking kids out of my room and into the hallway to discuss their behavior with them since I started teaching. I learned that from the teachers I taught with. They learned it from the people before them. We called that teaching. You can call it whatever you want, but that's what it was. You rightly articulated the problem, Brandon. The district doesn't have places for these kids who cannot function in a structured setting. We have buildings. We've had the armory for years. It's a storage locker. Let's do something about that.
And I do apologize, but I believe this is Sal Corliss? Saul. If you want to, I can say, I apologize, but if I mispronounce it, please correct me.
Saul Corrales. I'd like to start with, I'm a graduate from Waukegan High School. I graduated the year 2000. I graduated with a lot of peers of mine that really didn't graduate. So I understand these teachers. I thank you teachers. I thank staff members who really take part in it. I'm here to discuss one thing. My son goes Edith Smith, which is Webster. Name changed as this changes. YouTube now, right? Hey, hello. Things are changing around here. Okay, people are paying attention. You know, everybody keeps pointing a finger. Teacher said one great thing, accountability. When somebody fails at something, they got to be accountable for it. Everybody keeps pointing fingers, talking about this, talking about that. You know, what's happening in these schools is no game because it happens outside of the school. I live right outside of my school. I see these kids every day go to school, come out of school. Sometimes I have to stop altercations, you know, because I'm a part of this community, right? You know, if I wasn't, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't care. I'm not here writing and reading off for how many years I've been. You know, we come from a family that my mother couldn't be out here speaking. But guess what? I'm speaking. I speak for these teachers, for these people suffering. Why they got to be scared? For what? You know, when we were in school, somebody did something, you get suspended. You know, let their parents deal with it. Why? Because it's their fault. Sometimes it starts at home. My son, it happens that something happens, it starts at home. I teach him at home. I don't let you guys teach them and have the teachers right here teach them to lead. And leadership. Leadership is one thing we forgot around here. There's no leaders. You get all these grants, all this money coming in to teach these kids, for what? If there's no leader here to lead them on teaching them, it doesn't matter what you teach them, what robotics you got, what cool iPads you have. People would rather play with 2 sticks and marbles if that's the case. Why? Because that person, as a real leader, is leading these kids. Miss Hannah, I remember her giving speeches out here. Everybody claims about Miss Hannah. I'm not here to back nobody up. I'm here to speak for Waukegan. You know, they gave speeches. How many of you guys gave a speech in the high school? You know, and showed up and said, hey, how you guys doing? You know, things are going, and kind of make things happen. You know, I'm not here to point nobody's finger. I'm not here to downgrade nobody's work ethic. We're all here, like Ms. Gonzalez said. If this country, my question is, if this country was ran by one party, you think we'd be doing all right? You know, it's got to be ran by disagreement sometimes. Ms. Hannah disagrees. Ms. Gonzalez disagrees. Mr. Jeff McBride, you know, disagrees on a few topics about dress code. Yes, I have to turn around too. But it got to start at home. And it's got to start with leadership. Leaders, lead out here. We need more leaders.
Next name on the list is Nicole Hernandez.
The public has requested that I speak tonight since my previous requests to be placed on the agenda have been ignored. We the people as parents, caregivers, teachers, taxpaying citizens, have stood before you. We've requested, we've made phone calls. I personally have sent over 45 emails, right? You have heard concerns of discrimination, ill treatment, profiling of children regarding most wanted lists, the district's refusal to provide an education to those on the list, as well as those quarantined students and many disabled students. The district, from principals to Placencia, to the board, and even the district attorney here, all have been contacted by email. Some of the emails included things such as Section 105 of the Illinois Complied Statutes, subsection 5/14-13.01, letter A-5, which reads, a child qualifies for home or hospital instruction if it is anticipated that due to a medical condition, the child will be unable to attend school and instead must be instructed at home or in the hospital for a period of 2 or more consecutive weeks or on an ongoing intermittent basis. You've been provided with this. Whereas also Chapter 34 of the Code of Federal Regulations 00.115, Continuum of Alternate Placements, letter A, states that each public agency must ensure that a continuum of alternate placements is available to meet the needs of the children. You all will follow the law from now on. You will not allow for principals, administration, teachers, or yourself to harass, intimidate, and mentally harass not only the students, but also the other teachers. Whoever they're working with. It doesn't happen in the schools. Furthermore, while the children are in your care, you will follow constitutional rights and privileges, specifically those of the 14th Amendment, which prohibits the states from depriving any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. We demand remote learning for all children as families see fit, period. We demand ESSER funds and tutoring to be applied for all children as intended. We demand the profiling and the most wanted list be eliminated immediately. We demand that all communication be sent via all communication channels. Nick, that's you. You should be paying attention. We demand that reasonable accommodations be enacted at the immediate request of students, staff, and visitors, and as required by federal law.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez.
Thank you.
Next name on the list is Peggy Braden.
Good evening. My name is Peggy Braden, and I am a retired school nurse from District 60 and a community member. I want the school board and the members of the community to know that district administration is not following district policy 6030 and the Illinois School Code regarding compliance of immunizations and school physicals. District 60 nurses informed me of this situation beginning about a week ago. Nobody wants to exclude students from school due to non-compliance with immunizations and school physicals. However, the students and the community need to be protected from vaccine preventable diseases. It is my hope that the district administration immediately develop a plan to protect the students with minimal disruption to the education process within state law and district policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Braden. The next name on the list is Cameron Spencer.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cameron Spencer, and I've been in the district since 1999. I did have a little speech prepared here, but everybody literally hit every point I was making in that speech. So Let's talk about the 23 years I've been in this district. I came here 2 weeks after school started. I just got out the military, and my first day here, my car got towed. My second day, I got burned with a piece of equipment by one of the students, and I let him have it. And went home, talked to my wife at the time, and was like, you know, I'm probably gonna get fired tomorrow. But I didn't. Something else happened too. After I let him have it, that class straightened up. I never had another disciplinary problem out of them. So when we talk about accountability, you know, sometimes it's just being that adult presence in the classroom and letting them know, hey, do what you need to do. I'm not your enemy. I'm trying to set you up for success later on in life here. But sometimes that's not enough, which is where the administration comes in and gives us that support that we need. But there has to be that professional respect for what it is that the administrators of the building do at their level, what it is you do at your level, and what it is we do at our level. So, like I said, got here in '99, and I have seen some changes over the decades. When I first got here, as it was mentioned earlier, fights every day. I was breaking about 2 or 3 a week, okay? And then we moved into the smaller learning communities format, and I saw a dramatic drop, and it was crazy because a couple of things happened at the same time there. The smaller communities broke the kids up into smaller groups, made them more manageable. Start on Time started right around the same time. And there was some policy where, like, the students who had 5 credits, but they were age 17, well, they needed to go somewhere else because they were the main ones causing the problem. All of those things were dealt with around the same time, and it was dramatic improvement. It was one of the best times disciplinary-wise here at the school. But at the same time, you know, there were some concerns about academics as well, and I understand that. But right now, it's kind of hard to concentrate on those academics when you're trying to worry about not getting punched in the hallway, not catching the Rona. And so we need to work something on where we can make everyone feel safe. The kids, the teachers, the safety officers. And it's challenging, but we're worth it. Like I said, I've been here like 22 years. I feel like I got another 20 in me. But I want to live through it too, you know? So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Next name on the list is Luz Aquino. And Luz is going to, just confirming, Luz, you'll need translation, correct? Yes, so if we can get 6 minutes on the clock. And whenever you're ready, Ms. Aquino, once our district interpreter. And then before we get started, just for translation, so Ms. Aquino make her statements, and then you'll interpret. So Ms. Aquino, if you can let her know to just pause in between so you can allow for the translation.
Nomás le indica que haga pausa entre las oraciones para que podamos hacer la interpretación precisa.
Muchas gracias. Buenas noches, es un placer verlos a todos ustedes nuevamente.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to see all of you again this evening.
Yo estoy aquí por varias razones.
I am here due to various reasons.
Una de las principales razones que yo estoy aquí es porque en mi escuela no hay traductor.
One of the main reasons that I'm here today is because there is not an interpreter in my school.
Yo ya llevé este asunto a la directora, incluso a la superintendente.
I have already taken this issue to the principal, also to the area superintendent.
No me parece correcto que no haya traductor, ya que yo el mes pasado, en este mes en octubre, me invitaron a una junta que es, para mí las juntas de mi escuela son muy importantes.
I think that this is it's incorrect to not have an interpreter in the school, especially since this month in October I was invited to a school meeting, and those are very important to me.
La junta era para hablarnos acerca precisamente sobre nuestros hijos, los peligros que corren en las redes sociales.
The meeting was in regards to our kids, especially in the social media.
Mi sorpresa es que yo estaba ahí presente y no había traductor y las personas que iban a dar esa junta no saben español.
My surprise when I attended is that there was not an interpreter, and the individuals that were doing the presentation, they did not speak Spanish.
Yo dejé pasar eso, me comuniqué con la directora, con la superintendente, y yo esperaba ahora que fueron las conferencias a un traductor para mi conferencia con los padres.
I let that slide. I contacted the principal as well as the area superintendent. And then during school conferences, I expected to see an interpreter there for my school conference appointment time.
Uno de los maestros estuvo a punto de cancelar mi conferencia.
One of the teachers was about to cancel my conference appointment.
Yo tuve que contratar mi propio traductor, lo cual no me parece correcto.
I had to find my own interpreter, which I do not find correct.
Yo en esta noche yo les pregunto a ustedes, si la muchacha que está aquí, ella no me traduce, entonces los que no saben inglés van a desear saber lo que yo digo. Y yo creo que es incorrecto que una escuela esté sin traductor.
So I ask you here tonight, if the young lady is not right here next to me, for those individuals that only speak English, you would want to know what I have to say. ¿Qué era la última parte, perdón?
Que yo siento que mi escuela, y que creo que es un derecho que nos da el Estado, que debemos de tener un traductor para los padres que no sabemos inglés.
I think that it is a right for those parents that don't speak English to have an interpreter in the schools.
Ese es un punto que yo traigo, por favor, mi escuela necesita un traductor. Mi escuela es la John Lewis.
That is one of the points that my school needs interpreters. That name is John Lewis.
Otro punto importante, yo necesito, por favor, que me indiquen con qué persona ir. Yo necesito ver el currículo que está enseñando la escuela para mi hijo.
And another point is if you can indicate who I can be directed to speak about the curriculum that my child is being taught.
Yo necesito saber qué está aprendiendo mi hijo. También necesito saber si la escuela lo está preparando para que él pueda tener éxito, para que él pueda llegar a la universidad, porque yo sé que si fundamos buenas bases, los niños van a tener éxito.
I need to know what he is learning, and I need to know if he is going to be able to reach the success that he needs to for the university level, because we know that the foundation, it comes from the schools in order for them to reach success.
Así que yo esta noche estoy impresionada con todo lo que estoy oyendo aquí. Yo no había venido a la junta, pero yo les agradezco a las personas que hoy hablaron, porque yo ahora sé.
Tonight I am very impressed by everyone that is here and what I have been hearing. I haven't been here in a while.
Yo ahora sé que tal vez el que está enseñando a mi hijo a lo mejor no está ni preparado.
Because now I know that maybe the person that's teaching my son is probably not even prepared.
Entonces ahora yo lo que voy a llegar a hablar con todos los maestros y ver si puedo ver si son realmente maestros o son personas que realmente no tienen ni preparación.
So now what I may have to do is talk to each of my son's teachers to see if they are prepared.
Muchas gracias. Yo agradecería por favor que pudieran ayudarme con las peticiones que yo traje hoy.
Thank you very much, and I would appreciate if you could help me with my requests that I have brought forward today.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aquino. And so I'm sure someone who's sitting in the back will make themselves known. Next name on the list is Ms. Montalbano.
Good evening. My name is Amy Montalbano. I'm the para-union president. I'm here tonight to ask some questions regarding the football game that happened on October 8th. Are you aware that my members and your employees from the safety department were threatened by a student to be shot with a gun? We want to know why the game was not canceled, and what are you going to do to ensure the safety of my members moving forward? My union takes these threats to their safety very seriously, and we don't understand the process of determining threat levels. We feel that the game should have been canceled, however, we are not the decision makers. We need to be able to trust that all the decisions made regarding threats, and currently my members don't feel that they can. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Montalbano. Next name on the list is Rayon Edwards. I just saw Mr. Edwards. Does anybody see him in the hallway? If not, I'm gonna go to the next name, and as long as he comes back in before public comment ends, we'll let him speak. The next name on the list is Margot Gillen.
Hi, my name is Margot Gillen, and I'm sorry to say, Mr. Berry and Ms. Patty, your numbers are off. The reason your numbers are off are because many referrals are being deleted. We're saying that we've only had 60 incidents of no mask wearing. I don't think so. Some teachers are feeling threatened and intimidated that they are going to be taking COVID home. I have teachers coming to me and saying a child brought a knife to school and was going to sell it and was counseled about the incident. Selling a knife is more than an incident. It can lead to some serious danger. I have teachers coming to me and telling me that a student must have 3 warnings, then go to a buddy room and a parent contact before they can see the dean, and that starts over every day. How in 40 minutes do you need to respond to a child 3 times, send them to a buddy room, contact the parents before we will deal with anything? No, there are no write-ups for masks. You're right. I spent 10 times sending emails after I did a CPI hold to get it reported. 10 emails. I couldn't get the form, couldn't get it. Mr. Phil?
I just want to piggyback on what the young lady who with the cane, I didn't get her name. We only have 1 interpreter at Washington campus, and she services both our building and AOEC. And I have seen her on multiple occasions, literally running across the parking lot to go from one building to the other. And there's 2 at Brookside. So we have 1 interpreter, dedicated interpreter. Do we have people that speak Spanish? Yes, we do. I pull kids in every day. Do you speak Spanish? Because I need to talk to this kid. And we all do that. But we have 1 dedicated interpreter at a building of about 2,200 kids. That's a problem.
And you know I love you, Coach, but I just want to remind the audience that we do not see time. So I know you didn't know, and that's why I did stop you, because it was an important point. But I want to make it clear, because the minute I make the exception for I'm going to get dinged. So that's not allowed. We did allow them just to make that brief point, because I understand that not everybody attends all the meetings. It's a bunch of formality, but that is why we allowed it, and I want to go on the record in order to address it. I'm going back to Mr. Edwards. So I have Rayon Edwards, and then the final name will be Brother Blanks.
Good evening, board, superintendent, community members, and teachers. I truly want to say I'm totally disappointed tonight, y'all. I am. And I hope y'all listening to these teachers, because not only is they the first line of defense, but they all these babies have to depend on. You know, it's disappointing to me when I look at a lot of things, especially they pay. What are we paying them versus what we paying this administration? They are the most important thing in that school outside our kids. And we expect them to show up and teach and be abused and disrespected. No, suspension shouldn't be the first line of defense but some kids it's not good in a big setting. Some of them need them small settings. So I'm saying to this board today, we spent a lot of money on these entities that we bring in our community. How much vetting is we doing? We giving them millions of dollars, then millions of dollars can go to our teachers. When we pay our teachers worth something, they teach more. They write their own lesson plans. They doing everything. And we expect them to come out of the classrooms and also be safety officers? That's not part of their job description, y'all. How many of you board members actually go and talk to them outside of these meetings? How many of y'all go into these communities and talk to these families? Because it do starts at home. A lot of these kids is disrespecting their parents. What makes you think they're going to go to these schools and listen to these teachers? Let's act like we don't know that. Education ain't for everybody, but we don't like to say that because that sounds wrong. A lot of these kids go to school to congregate. And if I had an auntie or a father, mother that was teaching in that school and the kid hit mines, I don't know, y'all. I ain't gonna wanna do too much conversating. So what I'm saying to this board is I'm expecting a little bit different from y'all. We is who elected y'all. Y'all work for us. Y'all need to get from behind these desks and these microphones and get in these communities and talk to these parents, to these families. Before you guys make decisions about who you resourcing or outsourcing and bringing into our community, you might should ask these teachers and these parents how they feel about it before you make that decision. That matters. I don't want you to put up on those screen no numbers that you crunched up, because I don't know how you crunched them up. I want to talk to these teachers. I want to hear from them. I'm tired of all these slides, y'all. I came tonight and I'm fired up. I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed. I've been in this city all my life, 43 years. We got to do better. And for anybody that don't know, a school is a community inside of a community. When them kids walk out their parent doors, they ain't the same kids that walk in them school buildings. Come on now. Tardy and not masked. Come on, when I was in the school, we got discipline. Let's bring that back.
Thank you, Mr.
That's what
Edwards.
them rules are in place for, to restore order.
Brother Blakes.
Brother Blanks, founding president, Black Abolition Movement for the Mind. You know, some of the teachers definitely made some valid points here today. And discipline, as I said before, it has its place for order and for safety. But what I've heard here also is, unless a student, as this man said here, is coming into the school with a gun or a weapon, I'm not hearing expulsion. I'm not hearing out-of-school suspension as the first resort. There are different things that has not, and Senate Bill 100 was not put in place to curb discipline. I'm for it. Most of these kids that you're talking about, when they end up on the street, they end up at my place, right there on the south side. That's where my headquarters is, on 8th and McAllister Avenue. So many of them end up there, okay? So when we look at discipline, we definitely want to make sure we're not using discipline or out-of-school suspensions and expulsions as a first resort. That's what I have the problem with suspension. Many of these kids, as I heard earlier, they just coming off coronavirus over a expended amount of time. Here's counseling, all of this kind of stuff, right? So we're not trying to let the kids have a scapegoat and to be in school without discipline. But one thing that I want to say is to my teachers here, a lot of valid points was definitely made. I heard somebody say something about being proactive. Being proactive. Okay, we do have to be proactive and not reactive. I think I heard Ms. Kessler say something to the effect that the system is failing the student. So that right there says that the total fault is not that of the student. So before we go putting our kids out on the street, back into a chaotic environment in front of an each other in a line of fire or police fire. Let's make sure we fix the system. And one of the things I would like to say to you all who made some very valid points here, to the teachers union here, you all, I have to say this, you all are teaching in a predominantly black and brown district, okay? I feel good to see this one black man here to speak today. But when you're teaching in a predominantly black and brown community, to me, your voices would be heard a lot further and carry a lot more weight when you approach this council and you approach this community in a more diverse approach. One black male teacher should not be the total makeup speaking and representing a predominantly black and brown student district. So I'm appealing to you all as a student union, when you come before to make your points, please be more diverse, because I think in this particular district, it makes a difference. Diversity makes a difference.
Thank you, Brother Blanks. Thank you, Brother Blanks. This concludes our public comment. For those who may not come often, again, the program or the process or the procedure is typically, it's not a dialogue. We did receive some information and conversations that have been ongoing for a long time, so I didn't know, Superintendent, if you wanted to.
No, what I can tell you is that I heard the staff. I do agree the HERO system should have been ready for first day of school. And I'm looking in my department to find out why that didn't happen, and we know it didn't happen. And so you're absolutely right. My team has a directive that they're to have that up and running. Actually, it was supposed to be by this Friday. It landed, I'm not going to place blame in any department. But as we know, that is an attendance system. It should have been vetted. It should have been ready to go on day one, and it was not. And I will handle it personally. And my deputy is looking into it. I've started a research. It will be at the school very soon, and that is a very valid point. And it's our fault. We dropped the ball. I'm just going to own it, and I'm going to own it as a superintendent for my admin team. But it is coming. And the rest of the concerns we will be looking into. As I said, you're going to see my presence more at Brookside and more at Washington as we go through this. I hear, the face masks. I'm not saying to write them up. I'm going to say let's keep counseling our students. We need them in the building. As far as medical exclusion, that's my decision. We can't put kids out of school who have been out for 18 months, and it's hard to get a doctor's appointment. It's hard to get a doctor's appointment right now. So we are going to give them, I believe the date is.
After that, I want to add something.
Yeah, we're going to give them to November 4th to 5th to show appointment cards. If they do not have appointment cards, we will start excluding. Yes, we will. We've already been sending out communication. It definitely is a village. It definitely takes a village to raise a child. It can't be all on the teachers. It can't be all on the board. It's going to take all of us. And I understand, and I'm going to once again go back to this. It's not an excuse. The reality is we're dealing with our reality right now. Our kids have not been in these buildings for 18 months, right? The last thing we want them to do is push them back out. No one here is saying do not suspend. No one's saying do not hold them accountable. But when we talk about equity and the true sense of equity, we have to understand that our nation is at a crisis. And I'm not a politician. I'm a realist. And it is what it is. And I have conversations with Margot. We have an executive order, we have to be back to school, and you know that. And we're all doing the best under circumstances. Is it perfect? It's not perfect anywhere. It's just not, and that is the reality. But every time I hear something about content tracing, when the music teacher, I think she's back there, I can't remember her name, I know she's an excellent music teacher at Clark, we'll go back and I'll revisit that. Why are you not getting notified? And any time that there's an issue, we'll work on it. We just need to know. And I will take that back. But I will say, our contact tracers are also part of the union, and they're working really hard. They have a really hard job. And I will tell you, the board, the administration, we are committed to your safety for all of our stakeholders. At the same time, we now need to close that COVID slide, as Mrs. Vukovic said. So it's game on. We have to deal with the pandemic. We're not out of it, but we have our babies back in our school and they need us, and they need to be in school. They do not need to be out of school right now. If they're out of school, crime is going to go up in our communities. We will see the effect of this for generations to come. The nurses and the doctors were the frontline workers. Now it's our turn. They're back in our schools, and this is a national crisis. And if not us, then who? That's what I'm going to ask you. When you go back, if not us, then who? Because those kids are depending on every educator, every security guard, every custodian, every para, every admin. They're depending on us. And tomorrow for them is not promised for them, and it's not promised for us. So we can sit here and we can battle, or we can come up with solutions. And I heard about having a committee on attendance. I'm all for that. And as a result, I'm going to go back on my listening and learning tour through every building within this next month in November to hear from you personally. And I will sit with you, and I want to hear the concerns because I want it to be better. I want you to be comfortable at work. I want to be comfortable at work. But I want my students to be in an environment that's conducive and where they can learn. Because if they're not in my schools, they're going to be out on the streets in my community. And this is my community. So thank you for coming.
All right. Next on the list is our consent agenda. As a reminder, this is done to expedite the board meetings. We said 2 hours. It is now 9 o'clock. And so that 2-hour window is gone. So I am going to ask that we...
I motion to vote as presented.
I'll second that.
So we got a motion from Ms. Gonzalez to approve the consent agenda as presented, a second by Mr. Riddle. Any comments or questions? Roll call.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Callahan Wozniak?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Leguizamo?
Yes.
President Ewing?
Yes. Item approved, motion carries. We are at purchasing and contracts. We have the CAMI renewal, and I know I'm going to address it right now. We have individuals from BAM who are present, so I am going to do that presentation is because I don't want to drag that out, especially if they've shown up to present. It doesn't need to be long. We don't have a lot on our agenda, but I do want to get through the rest of this so we can get that presentation and go home. My expectation is that we would be going by 9:30. So the consent agenda is approved. If we can scroll back up because I need to as I need to read those. Approval of mechanical improvements at multiple locations, statement of work number 2. B, approval of crisis goal safety iPads contract extension. C, Dreambox learning renewal. D, renewal of Dr. Takashi professional development. E, the attendance of diverse learners, Administrator Assistant Director Dr. Cheryl Caesar, Elementary Coordinator Samantha Haney, and Director Dr. Gregory Buglitz at the Learning Disabilities Associations of America Conference on 1/25/22 through 1/30/22 in New Orleans, Louisiana, with an estimated cost of $6,900. F, attendance of diverse learner high school coordinator Teresa Clark at the Council of Exceptional Children Convention on 1/16/22, 1/19/22 in Orlando, Florida for estimated $3,000. Item G, Deputy General Counsel Contract Amendment number 2. H, approval of 3-year lease for 1 driver education vehicle. I, hand-to-mind K-5 science materials. And J, approval of Equity and Education Partners EEP contract. All right, we're now at 11A, which is the CAMI renewal, purchases and contracts. Any comments, questions, or do I need a motion?
I motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Gonzalez, second by Mr. McBride. Any comments or questions? All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item 12A, personnel for 10/26/2021. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion.
Motion. Second. You already have them read, I guess.
So Ms. Hannah pledged a point of order, so we're going to go back. Because it's expending money, we are going to take a vote. With that, we're going back to the CAMI renewal. Do I have a motion to approve?
That was you.
I motion.
Motion by Ms. Gonzalez, second by Mr. McBride. Roll call vote.
Doesn't the superintendent have to read it?
Can we read it, or?
The recommended action is there. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the renewal of CAMI for the purpose of supporting teachers and students to take any existing document, including scanned PDFs, and write, draw, type, annotate, comment, augment, enhance, and otherwise bring it to life for the amount of $33,750, subject to the attached revised terms, and so performs. We got a motion. We got a second. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Leguizamo?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Callahan Wozniak?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yeah.
Mr. Riddle? Miss- Go on.
1 minute, Ms. Cassandra.
I'm sorry.
Recommendations come from the superintendent, and that's the protocol that should be followed.
Ms. Hannah, I just read it for brevity. We had a meeting last night in which the Board of Education asked me to go through and get through these meetings. That is what I'm doing as board chair. The recommendation is from the superintendent. All I did was read it. We got a first, we got a second. We were in the middle of a roll call. I believe your vote was yes. We can continue with the roll call, please.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
President Ewing?
Yes. Motion carries. Item approved. Personnel for 12A, 10/26/2021.
It is a recommendation that the Board of Education accepts the administration recommendation to approve the appointments, head coach, and accept the resignations as found on schedules F968 and L915.
Mr. Riddle, I so move we approve it as read by the superintendent.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Riddle, second by Mr. McBride. This is who I heard first. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Leguizamo?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Callahan Wozniak?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
President Ewing?
Yes. Item approved, motion carries. We're now at administrative appointments, or we have some administrative appointments the superintendent wanted to introduce.
At this time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Carmen Brito Lezobach, who previously served as the educational professional coaching through Remote USA. She will now serve as the interim assistant principal at John R. Lewis with a starting salary of $74,500.
Yay.
Welcome, Mrs. Brito.
Welcome to District 60.
If you're here, can you please stand?
No.
Not here, let's.
Next,
She's
another
not
one.
present.
All right, we are now at the financial reports. 15A, ratification of the second processing of board bills for October 2021, and manual check request payments and First Midwest insurance payments for the period of October 6, 2021 through October 19, 2021.
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Education ratify the second processing of board bills for October 2021 and manual check request payments and First Midwest insurance payments for the period of October 6, 2021 through October 19, 2021. The accounts payable board October 6, 2021 through October 19, 2021. Payments total $4,565,648.35. The manual check request payments for the period of October 6, 2021 through October 19, 2021 total $1,112,163.49. The First Midwest insurance payments for the period of October 6, 2021 through October 19, 2021 total $0.
I make a motion that the recommendation is approved. as
Motion.
read.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hannah, second by Ms. Wozniak, is who I've heard first. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Leguizamo?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Callahan Wozniak?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
President Ewing?
Yes. Item approved, motion carries. I'm now going to go to only student board member report, and it's very brief. Mr. Usani could not be here this evening because he is a responsible student and had some college deadlines that he needed to get done. So he sent his regards and will join us at our next meeting. I'm then going to jump down to information items. The only information items that we will hear this evening, because the other two are first readings, is 17B, which is the Waukegan Public School District 60 Social and Emotional Learning Supports.
Dr. Nault? Who's coming up for this presentation? Sorry, Dr. Bublitz, I thought it was Dr. Nault.
I think because we have the same areas, it may be confusing. All right, good evening, board members, superintendent, community members, staff. Much of this has been presented before, as we wanted to make sure that we still have front and foremost information on our SEL supports throughout the district. Can you hear me? I don't hear it, so, okay. So first is just social emotional learning, and really the definition on there is looking at how are you preparing students for self-regulation, working with others, socialization, and emotional intelligence. But what supports do we have? And so we heard a lot of things today about disciplined behavior, et cetera, but what can we do? We can build those relationships, build the skills Mr. McBride talked about, et cetera. And so when we look at our support staff, we have internal support staff, school psychologists, social workers, counselors, and teachers. And I think we always go with the first three, but we don't always throw teachers in there, right? So they provide that tier 1 support. They often provide those tier 2 and 3 supports. We have related service staff. They target specific supports to students, such as emotional regulation, sensory regulation, etc. In addition, we have various specialists, the MTSS specialists, behavior specialists, and as well as external specialists support teachers, whether it's in special ed, in MTSS, or in those tier 1 supports. I know there's Dr. Nault will be presenting on BAMWOW, correct? So I'm not going to go over that. But we do have, in addition to those internal supports, several external supports, which includes BAMWOW, Asian Human Services. We talked a lot about restorative justice today, and different therapies that we can do. We have social SEG groups that we can target with our panorama data. We can target specific needs of students, so we're not just throwing darts at the wall. If a student has anger management or executive function or other issues, we can target that and get the right supports from our staff, whether internal or external supports. One of the things we're looking at for the future is mental health first aid. This is something we're currently looking into, working with
And I'm
teaching
sorry,
learning.
the presentation is jumping around. It's hard for me to follow where we are. So which slide are we speaking to?
Page 11.
The next one. Sorry.
So we skipped over BAMWOW and the HS?
Yeah, page 11.
Dr. Nault will give more on that, so I don't want to take away his presentation. So we're looking at mental health first aid. Do you want to go through that, or I know Stephanie or Jennifer have been looking into that?
Good evening, Board of Education, President Ewing, Superintendent Placencia. So these are possible partnership, and this is a possible partnership that our district can continue to support and to train to build the capacity of our staff around trauma-informed education, and also how we support students and adults that we see this in, or any kind of trauma in. And so really it is what is a mental health first aid. And it is when we can really see and support the first signs in students and or adults that are seeing mental health problems, and also to build an understanding and to build these supports within our schools, working alongside them to intervene and to teach alongside of our staff. Within this program, it's a partnership with the Mental Health First Aid Organization, and if you see the bullet points below, really seeing how we build our knowledge, how we identify multiple signs of mental health, of substance abuse and or challenges, how we can increase confidence within our own staff, as well as the individual that's in distress, and to increase just our awareness overall. Here is what a possible partnership and a proposed plan could look like. And again, this is just information, but it really is housed underneath all of our mental health supports and our plans. So if we were to train our staff, social workers, counselors, we would have a 3-day training, and they would be in cohorts. They'd be in cohorts of 16, small cohorts of our mental health leaders, in which we would train them to be trainers within our buildings. And this support would help well and align perfectly with our social emotional learning school improvement goals. And we can see that with this proposed plan, that it will be targeted for grades 6 through 12, social workers, counselors, again, to build their capacity. And what we would want that goal to be certified instructors that could also provide professional development to our adults, to our families, and anyone that would need it. Some of the details of this plan and to build the capacity to train our staff would be 5 hours of pre-work. There would be homework after training in which we would be right alongside them, and it would be paid. Our social workers, our counselors would have certification, and they would have the opportunity also to train within Lake County. So if they wanted to further their training and to continue this work, they would have the opportunity to open their doors, and we would have the opportunity to open our doors across multiple districts and schools. So that's really exciting. Thank you. So the proposed plan for this and the research that we've been doing to align alongside of our board and alongside of our schools and really in hearing our community this evening, we have a proposed plan and a quote of $156,000. And this really is, I think, also the most important work of our board is how are the work that we do align to our schools, their goals, and their visions. And what we really want to put our stamp of approval, we want to put our foot forward, moving today and every day forward, is how are we really showing and coming back to you all in our community of how effective the supports that we are putting in place into our schools and helping our schools, and how effective is that really, how effective is that data? And that is something that we are really putting our foot forward within our teaching and learning department to bring back to you. Because we know that you put a lot of effort into our social, emotional, and to our academics. And those are things that we are gearing up to really bring back. So I want to thank you for your time to listen to not only the supports that we are providing, that we will continue to provide, but also proposed supports, and how we can really provide those wraparound services in a larger macro scale. Thank you.
All right. I think the point and the concerns from today show that the collaboration between teaching and learning, MTSS, diverse learners, and everyone is that full continuum of services where we have classroom teachers and doing second step or other tier 1, the social workers, counselors, psychologists providing tiers 2 and 3. We have BAMWOW, Asian Human Services, and proposals to increase the bandwidth of our teachers to address trauma and mental health needs. Ms. Hannah.
Yes, and I'm just curious. We have, as you just named, all of the different entities and partners that we have brought into the district, okay, before today, right? And then we have individuals in the district that has the expertise, the certification, the education to deal with mental health issues, and also the training. They're able to train social workers and everybody else. So I'm just wondering, how come we again have to go outside to bring in people duplicating services again in the district? And I'm sure that the $156,000 is coming out of our ESSER money, okay? And so it's not well spent money, in my opinion, because, I mean, can't you train people to do mental health?
I can to some extent, but that's not my
issue.
certification.
Dr. Bulbitz, that's not, I'm not saying that's not the issue. I don't think that's the point. With the amount of mental health and the amount of social support we need to provide our teachers, as you just heard them in the audience, this is exactly what the ESSER funds is for.
Okay.
And so it's not about training, it's about capacity, it's about bandwidth, it's about utilizing the ESSER funds that we were allocated by the state and the federal government for the supports that are needed, not only for our students, but for our staff.
I had a concern kind of along the lines of Miss Hannah, although just specifically about this, because I know the College of Lake County is hosting classes like this, free to the community. Right. I know that the Lake County Health Department has had classes like this. So my only concern is, can we leverage the relationships we have with those institutions to do something like this? Right. Or is this particular organization going to provide a greater benefit and return on investment with their specific program? What would be the argument for that?
So I'll let Stephanie answer in a second, but I do want to make the point that we're having the mental health first aid come in to train our staff to increase our ability to train our own staff, thus it is an internal support. Yeah. And you know, I don't know everything. I need outside support to learn things too.
And I totally agree. I think professional development is huge. We should support that.
Yep. And I want to make sure that the point's not missed, is I'll be taking a class that is free, that is offered by the Lake County Health Department, which will certify me as a mental health first aid responder.
That's right.
Is this something different is what the board is asking you? And if it's not something different, why wouldn't we partner with the organization where those that go, if they can train us and they're willing to do it for free, what we heard is what we see is $156,000. And that's, again, I'm the person, spend whatever I want on my kids. But what the board is asking, have we looked at cheaper alternatives and with local resources that are already here in our community?
So we have. I've talked to Lake County. So what happened was they had a grant through the state through the end of September. So when I talked to the Lake County Mental Health, the classes that they offer are a 2-hour class for just teachers not to become certified instructors, but just to have a very basic training. So when I talked to Lake County, they were looking at to see if they were going to get their grant renewed as of October 1st. But he said because of the amount of staff that we would like to have trained as certified instructors, he's the one that referred me to the national organization, because he said by the time Lake County would, and they only do it very small groups, because it would also be over Zoom. So he said he would do like 8 to 10 groups of people that would take 5 days. And the amount of people that we would like to get trained, that 96 social workers and counselors, it would take a great amount of time. And he didn't know if he had the capacity because it's only him. Because the classes that they offer are 2 hours, where the instructor training is a full 3 days with the prerequisite work and then the post work.
Yeah.
So we did reach out, and that's something that if you know, I can always go back and see if they got the grant renewed to see if it's a possibility, but
Yeah.
it is just a 2-hour class.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I think that's what that's why I ask those, you know, not leading questions, but that specific question, because I'm all for this. I think our teachers need therapy. I think our staff needs therapy. I needed therapy and I started it because this is just that kind of time. And we've talked about training. What we heard, a lot of it is around capacity building. But I think what our community sometimes does not remember is that our capacity all across the board is limited. And that's all it is. We want more hands on deck. I'm willing to give anybody the benefit of the doubt that if you're really good at something and you can come in and help and impact somebody, that's worth the investment. But if that could be integrated in the explanation, I asked the question because I think that's what the board was concerned about. Now we understand why we want to be local, but everybody local is going through it too. So, they recommended this training.
They do, and it's just because they just don't have the capacity to kind of train the amount of staff that we would like to get trained.
Speak into the microphone so everyone can hear.
They just don't have the capacity to train 96 social workers and counselors to be instructors for the upcoming school year, for next year. Yes, Ms. Hannah.
And I'm going to ask my favorite question.
Yeah.
How is this benefiting students? Because everything we do is ultimately supposed to benefit students. So could you explain that?
So this is going to benefit the students because the social workers are going to be instructors and they are going to train the teachers. So when students, as you heard today, are coming in with a lot of anger, a lot of mental health issues, so the teachers then become the first responders before they get to the social worker levels. So the teachers need to be trained and have their capacity, we need to build their capacity. So if we have our social workers that are here in-house, train our teachers, that they can better support the students when they are in the hallway, when they're angry, when they're looking to make better decisions across the board. Because this program would be for 6-12, and that's where, based on the data that we saw today, that's where the behaviors are happening.
I guess I definitely, we have the information, Board of Education. If you have further questions, I'll ask that you send those to the superintendent for the sake of time, and there were other portions of the presentation. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay.
That's
I just want to make one comment. And I'm like you, the more the merrier. But we do have that presently, the presentation that you just gave, and I found that out myself because I didn't really understand why MTSS was here. And I asked the question, and I got an answer. And the answer that I got, everything that you just presented to me, that's why MTSS is here. MTSS is here. It was not MTSS was not directly for the kids. I found out MTSS was for the teachers and staff to train them on how to deal with the kids when when issues come. Yeah. And you just said the same thing to me. That's what you're getting ready to bring somebody in again to do the same thing.
Yes.
But maybe they might be a little bit more professional and bring more meat to the table than what MTSS is. So, I mean, I agree, the more the merrier. So I understand it. But I didn't understand why MTSS was here. But until I asked, I always thought they were going to be pretty much doing what BAM and WOW is doing. That's not what they were here for. But anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Training, educating grown-ups.
Yeah, it's the same. We're going back to this presentation. I guess we jumped around a little bit. So, unless you have something different that's related to BAM and
No, mine was, I thought it was under the superintendent's report, so I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware that it was nested under there, I think.
Yep, it's fine.
Okay, sorry. Good evening, everyone. Superintendent, board president, members of the board, community and staff that are here this evening. Wanted to provide the board and the superintendent with an update on youth guidance and Asian Human Services for Q1. This is same process that we went through last year, providing the board with an update on these programs and the services that they are providing. Did want to thank members of Youth Guidance for being here this evening, so thank you guys for being here. Next, we'll start with Youth Guidance first. Next slide, please. So when we look at the school year to date, on the left you'll see the schools that have been identified to be served this year through the Youth Guidance program. Students served as of July 1st, 2021 include 275 students served to date. And I'll break down into the number of counselors that we have hired on the next slide. In terms of the demographics of those students that have been served, you can see the breakdowns and the percentages there. I'm not going to go through them, but there's the breakdown of those 275 students. You can also see the percentage of that 275 and what grade level they fall into.
What's FRL?
Say it again?
FRL eligible?
Free and reduced lunch eligible. So of the students that are in the program, 97% of them qualify for free reduced lunch. Any questions on the demographics or the grade levels? Any questions on those numbers? In terms of what's happening in schools, you'll see that the BAM circles have already been in session at Juarez, Benny, Smith, Brookside, and Lewis. And those are essentially the BAM circles are the group counseling sessions. Yes, Ms. Hannah?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Dr. No. The grade levels, the percentages, I have always asked for actual numbers instead of the percentages.
Okay.
And so I would like to see the actual number instead of the percentages.
No problem. And so just as an example, so 15% of 275, I can do some rough math at the end and give you the numbers before we leave this evening if you would like.
Well, no, you can send it to the superintendent.
No problem.
And they can send it to me and the rest of the board if they choose to want it.
Not a problem.
I do.
Next slide, please. We'll give you a hiring update for both BAM and WOW. At the beginning of the year, we started off with the goal of having 9 counselors in place for the BAM program. As of today, we have 5 counselors in place for BAM. So they are in the process of still recruiting for 4 vacancies. The counselors that we currently have are located at Benny, Lewis, Juarez, Smith, and Brookside. Like most organizations, there is a challenge and shortage of employees, so I know Youth Guidance is doing the best they can, and they are very thorough in their hiring practices when they do bring on counselors to the organization. So as far as BAM's concerned, again, there are still 4 vacancies remaining to be filled. For WOW, kind of a similar story. We had 6 counselors that we intended to hire at the beginning of the year. As of today, we have 2 of those 6 counselors that have been onboarded and will be starting next month. And WOW still has 4 vacancies as well. The 2 new counselors that will be starting for WOW will be at Brookside and at Benny High School starting in November. They've already been on sites, meeting with staff, et cetera. So they're there. They're just going to start providing services next week. In terms of recruitment efforts, Youth Guidance has listed their vacancies on a variety of different platforms and websites to try to attract candidates with the understanding that they would make every effort to try to hire locally if possible.
Dr. Knoll,
Yes.
Are those numbers in terms of the number of counselors? Now I know that we increased the contract.
Yes. Last year we had a total of 6 BAM counselors in the district. We extended our request to increase that was from 6 to 9 counselors for BAM, and WOW was a completely new program. So our request was for 6 counselors for this year for WOW.
Okay, but you told us that that additional money to the contract, they were going to hire 10. So we should have 16 BAM
15 total.
counselors?
No, 15 total between BAM and WOW. So 9 BAM counselors total and 6 WOW counselors. So 15 between the two programs.
Oh, okay. Okay, have to go back and look at that.
Next slide, please. So we look at progress to date. As mentioned earlier, BAM has provided services to 275 students. It's kind of a breakdown of what those services look like. They're doing individual counseling, they're doing group counseling. They have what's called brief encounters, which are simply day-to-day check-ins that they do with students. They have group counseling sessions, as mentioned, ad hoc groups where they potentially can form groups out of different groups depending on if there's a common, potentially like a common a concern or a common theme that they feel students may benefit from. They can form ad hoc groups as well. And then there's services being provided at special activities, which is participation in things outside of the counseling realm. So if you recall, when we presented in over the summer, we had several of the BAM counselors that were assisting with food distribution, were assisting with distributing laptops and those kinds of things. So outside of the normal counseling services, there are some specialty or special activities that they also provide as well. Any questions on the BAM and WOW Q1 update?
Ms.
We-
Wozniak?
Go ahead, Ms.
Do we
Wozniak.
have any anticipated date when we'll get all the hires done? Are they
I don't know.
interviewed currently and in the pipeline, or is it going to be months still?
I can ask someone from Youth Guidance to come up to answer the question about the recruitment process.
I'm sorry, did you
and
hear
where they're
my
at.
question? I'm sorry, I was leaning back a little bit too far.
So this is Ngozi Harris from WOW, and we have Darwin Gordon from BAM. I'm sorry, I forgot. Juliet, that's right. I just met her recently on a Zoom call. And Philip Cusick, one of the senior directors as well.
And before, can I add on to Ms. Wozniak? How many, that was my question, Mr. Ewing. How many BAM and WOW counselors do we have total here in the district? And how many are there at each school?
Can you go back to the
Go back to the slide.
Okay. I'll answer the question. So if you look at the slide previously, Ms. Hannah, right now we have 7 counselors in the district, 5 BAM
Go back one more.
and 2 WOW.
There you go.
So there's 7 youth guidance counselors in the district currently out of 15.
Right, where are they?
The
It's right there.
locations are there. For BAM, they're currently located at Benny, Lewis, Juarez, Smith, and Brookside. And for WOW, they're Brookside and Benny.
Okay. That was my
And
question.
so to answer the question around how's the recruiting going, we have been actively posting everywhere we can look, asking for recommendations from the school principals. We've posted in the local newspaper because we are committed to hiring locally for Waukegan. And so identifying candidates that
By local newspaper, you mean,
the Lakeside area, in addition to, help me out.
have you tried the Latino newspapers as well?
Yep.
Okay.
We're taking recommendations, so if there's any that additional ones, we're working with the district to get it posted on you guys' website. But we're working to put together a job fair as well. We're attending the Lake County Job Fair tomorrow. We're committed and we've been working really hard to get candidates in, and we are starting to see an increase in uptake for the different positions that we have posted. But just this time period has really been challenging since the pandemic and
So
transitions.
you don't have people interviewed and in the pipeline yet? You're
do.
still looking for interviewees?
I could speak a little bit on that. I actually been interviewing. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. I actually been interviewing yesterday and today, finally, because we have had an increase starting Thursday of last week. We had a few candidates. We have about
2, possibly 3 group interviews. They'll go to our second round. We do have a 3-step process. We want to make sure we have the best clinicians at our schools, right, working with our young students. So there is a process that we have. So right now in the pipeline, I would say we have about 3 candidates going to the next interview, and I am working on doing phone screeners.
So when would they be, if they
Next
pass,
week.
when
So-
would they
So
be?
most of them, they weren't available until next week because I'm trying to get this process done. So one of them is out of town, so next Wednesday, should be doing the second and possibly third interview the same day.
So we wouldn't see them in the school till probably December?
Correct, because we also have to do the background check process and those things.
Timeline.
Yep.
What's the qualifications to be a BAM member, so to speak, to do what you guys are doing?
So in order to be a BAM counselor, we first start looking at master level practitioners, and we also look at bachelor's levels, in which we will have to provide up to 200 hours of training to get them, where we want them to be. But we do try to identify on a scale and then apply the appropriate training needed.
So you have to have a bachelor's. You have to have a bachelor's degree to be a
bachelor preferred, yes. That's where it starts, right?
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for youth guidance? I'm going to move on to Asian Human Services. I do have the flyers, recruitment flyers as well that they have available. So again, if anyone knows any potential candidates, we will have this on the district website as soon as possible.
Do you guys make exceptions if a person have experience and don't have a bachelor?
Well, in that case, so that would be one of the calls our Human Resources Department would make, because experience does count. So we would look at a person's experience level, and then again, the appropriate training would have to go into place, and then we would ask that person to get their degree in whatever area they need to.
Thank you.
And I'll just say this for a while. They would have to be currently in a master's degree program in order to be hired for a while. And I actually wanted to correct something that Jason said. Our 2 counselors, were hired on October 4th and October 18th. So they are currently starting the enrollment process with young people, working with the school to get the referrals coming, and are building those relationships in those schools. But they are recent hires, so we're doing training as well as getting them started and getting programming started at those 2 sites.
Well, I just want to iterate a plus. I'm going to give you a plus because I went over to Jack Benny School and I talked to the principals over there. And from my understanding, you guys are making some headways. I did hear that. Yeah.
Ms. Leguizamo?
That was going to be my question in regards to your program. Just kind of getting the feel of where you are up and running. How are you feeling that the students are receiving you? Are they receptive? Are they opening? Or there's still a little bit of head butting and still got to create the connections and so forth? Just trying to get an idea of where you're kind of feeling where the program is starting off as, right?
Okay, well, to date, in all of the 5 schools that BAM are in, it's just been a tremendous acceptance. The students are really engaged. They really are building relationships with their counselors. And it's just been an overwhelming process that's been very positive. The only bad thing is we can't service everybody. And we have so many youth that want to be involved, they can't. And that was one of the hardest things I had to work with my counselors about. You can't be overwhelmed as a counselor. So our initial caseload is 55 to 60. At the high school, he has 75. At Juarez, he has 70, because it's just that need. So it's been very well accepted, and everything is just moving right along as need be. Just wish we had more capacity to service more youth.
And that's a big caseload.
Yes, it is.
That's a big caseload.
Yes, it is.
And to just kind of go off of what he said, we're seeing the same thing. At Brookside, it's a larger campus. So there's like an excitement with administration and there's an excitement with the students. So the students, I mean, I meet with her and students are knocking on her door and I'm like, can I meet with you at least? But they're really excited at Brookside. At Benny, she's been there less than a week and she has like 15 students who want to be part of the program. Right now she is engaging parents, getting those consents, but she's only been there a week. So I'm like, wow, that's great. Like that's a really great startup for her to just enter the school. She's probably been there 4 full days and she's getting a really good response for the staff. The staff is doing amazing, referring students to us. So we're having a really good turnout, and like Darwin said, there's a lot more students than we can service.
Just a brief comment, really more for the board. You know, as we're looking at what the acceptance of level that we're getting from our students from these programs that have already gotten their ground running, just kind of shows that our students are accepting it, they're wanting it. Our building administration is wanting it, and it just seems like there's just so much of a need. So we're definitely moving in the right direction. You know, just like all of us wish one day, one flip of the switch, everything will be all fixed and hunky-dory. But I definitely think we're moving in the right direction with these types of support systems for our students and our staff. So, I mean, I just wanted to make that comment, but thank you.
And that's the message that we've had from the beginning, Ms. Leguizamo, is that it's about the menu of supports that we can offer students. Not one program or approach is a silver bullet that's going to solve every single concern that we have, but providing almost having an overwhelming list of options for students is what we're trying to accomplish with some of the programs that we brought in. So thank you for acknowledging that.
Another question, Dr. Knott.
Yes.
I am concerned when you got a caseload that big. And are we able to help you share your wisdom with other individuals in the building to become, have the same wisdom that you have, to be on the same page? Because I think there's a need. We have what we call a climate control specialist, but it's a lot of climate control specialists. Not even with just the other individuals, security. I mean, to share that same wisdom that you have to help bring that caseload down to, you could have more impact than what you're doing. And I'm saying that because my experience, when I had a counselor, it was only like 15 of us on the caseload. But I was successful in the end because he was able to give me more attention and get around to me more often and have more impact on what he was trying to do to bring me around and restore me. So you get where I'm coming from here?
Yes. One more comment. Of the 4 vacancies that we have, Mr. Brookside, there is an additional one that will be hired for Brookside. So Brookside will have 2
I get that, but
when we get there.
I'm talking about not just 1 or 2. I think I expressed myself pretty clear is what I was trying to say.
Right.
Because what you know, somebody else can know it too, and still have the same impact that you can have if they had the wisdom to have the same knowledge.
So as far as the caseload, in our recruitment efforts, we always recruit more than we need because throughout the year they drop off. So come January, he may only have 60 because of different things, because it's not a mandatory program, it's optional. So that will handle that piece. Plus, he's an experienced counselor, so if he's got 60, he can handle it. As far as sharing our knowledge, they would have to fill out an application, pretty much, and get hired with us. Now, we do build relationships in the school, and we do share common knowledge about students. Will at Brookside has built great relationships with the security guards in the hall. They do talk, they do converse about different students. That's pretty much how that collaboration works. As far as giving them all our knowledge, they would actually have to sit down and be trained and get our 200 hours of training and all that. So,
Well, I said that because we just had a presentation where dealing, I know you sat there and heard it, we're getting ready to hire a group to come in. When we get done, they'll be able to train 96 staff members. And those staff members will train the rest of the staff members. That's where I was coming from.
that could be something possible down the line.
But the whole curriculum is a system, so, and it's on point training. But we do provide support to schools and administration for additional SEL training, but it would not necessarily support that. I ain't trying to take your dollars from you, but I'm just saying. That's all.
All right. Thank you all for coming, for being here, for answering those questions. What you hear and what you heard tonight is the urgency, right? And so we understand the needs, but every day on my social media, it's, well, you have BAM and WOW. So I want the community to know that the board was first late in approving it is because, as you all know, working with Black and brown kids, we are protective of who we put in front of them. We are protective of what organizations we partner with. And so if it took us a little bit more time in order to make sure that it was the right thing to do, it was the right thing to do. But we also have to understand, because of that, they don't have all the people in place. Now, we can have an expectation or a want to get that done by January 1st, but I know from our, and then let's go through AHS, but I know our current social workers are inundated right now. We talk about the caseloads that BAM and WOW counselors are dealing with. Our in-house social workers are overwhelmed and overworked. They're dealing with behaviors that they've never experienced or seen before related to the pandemic. And so as we understand and have empathy for the hiring and the caseloads and the need that is there, remember that our social workers are under that same burden, and we have to provide them some of those supports as well, and that there should be a collaborative process with all of those involved. And so I do want to make sure that our student support services are reaching the students. It's because that's always happening. We're seeing these behaviors. The board, the community has seen that we've approved all of these monies, but we have to be very, very transparent about where we are in the process, especially with hiring and where students are being referred. It's because they say, well, if you spent all this money and you have all these people, why are we still seeing these same problems and behaviors? And the issue is we've approved the money, we haven't spent the money because we haven't had all the people in place, and we are building that out. But we have to have a solid referral program. Kids are going to gravitate towards who they see. There are other programs that are already in, like Talent Search, right? And so there are students who would benefit from Talent Search that I guarantee you are being referred to BAM or WOW, which they really, so what is the criteria? And that can be something that we go through for the referral process, is because we have services and there are different students, so that we can have a more manageable caseload for BAM, so that we can have a more manageable caseload for our interim social workers, our in-house social workers, and so that we can also make sure that we're utilizing the other partnerships that existed prior to this, because there have been people who've been working with District 60 for decades. There are other community organizations that do great work and can support those other students who BAM and WOW is not targeted for. So I want to make sure that we are hyper-focused so that they can be successful. It's because at the end of the day, we want this partnership to be successful, and that those other partnerships can serve our students. It's because BAM and WOW, no matter how much money we get them, cannot serve 15,000 students. And what we know right now is we have 15,000 students that need service. And so I commend us for coming up with some creative ways in order to do it, but I want to make sure that we are hyper-focused, and we talked about redundancy of services. Equity is some kids may need all, but are we effectively identifying which kids are right for which programs? Do we know what all resources currently exist in the schools? And if we don't, my encouragement is that we get very intentional about that. And I'm not saying we're not. I just have to say it is because what I continually hear when I went into the schools and I talked to the students, I asked the question, if you were in a crisis, is there a place in this school that you would feel comfortable or could go to talk to somebody? And in 6 classrooms, 22 kids per classroom, to a student, outside of an individual teacher, they said no, right? So if that is their experience, and I'm comparing that to our experience as a board member with all the resources and the money that we're authorizing, there seems to be a disconnect. And it's not due to lack of trying, it's not due to people, everybody's working as hard as they can. I'm just speaking on behalf of the students, and even what you heard with the teachers, is they don't feel like those supports are there, or they don't understand how they're structured, or how they're impacting the student body as a whole. So I do want to get the AHS update, but again, I also want to go on the record that BAM and WOW are not going to solve all District 60 problems. And if that is what our expectation is, we're wrong, and that is unfair to them as an organization. They will help us address those underlying issues. They will support our students more, but we have to make sure that we're utilizing this resource in the right way.
Can I add just a quick comment? I'm past my my speech. The biggest thing behind what Brandon is talking about is that visibility is so important. Everybody in this room that came in to talk does not feel heard, does not feel like they have, like Brandon said, the support. And when we say we have these supports, we need to present you. Me questioning about the program was yes, about understanding what you guys can offer our students and our kids, but it was to bring you here and to really get to know you. I'm not gonna say yes to anything that is just solely presented on its face, trusting that everything's gonna, call to me and make me vote yes. I want you to stand up for what you're bringing to the students and really deliver on it. And I think you can, because I mean, I've seen the presentations, the testimonies that came out when we did that session. That came through, and I think our students are going to benefit from that. But the community that is reluctant to change, that is reluctant to other people, unfamiliar people coming in and trying to have an impact on students, that unfamiliarity is going to hinder your visibility. So I'm guaranteeing you that you are going to have an impact on these kids, but that is going to be the barrier. And that's something the board is working on. That's something our staff is working on. But that's why we appreciate this work, and we want to highlight it, and we want to lay it out before everybody who has these questions, to say, this is where we're at. This is who is here. That you are not paying attention and looking at their work is an issue, but it's not something that we can resolve by forcing you to look at it, right? But at least we're here and we're visible about it. So that's just a message that I want to give to you guys, because this is grueling work. But I think it's going to be an investment worthwhile in the end. Hoping that another crisis did not happen. But that was all I was going to add.
And so what we're going to do is get through the AHS, because we have other presentations that we held over in order to address this one, and then we will adjourn. No, there will not be board member time, and that is based on conversations that we had last night. We are already an hour past our targeted deadline. So let's get through the AHS information, and then we will adjourn.
Okay, I just want to thank you, the members from Youth Guidance, for coming out again this evening. You guys are dismissed if you want to leave. Thank you so much. They've been here since 7, so I just wanted to see them on their way. Thank you, guys.
Go to bed.
Have a good night. Drive safe. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, as it relates to Asian Human Services, in terms of the counselor distribution, same situation. We currently have 4 counseling positions that are filled, with 2 being vacant. You can see the counselors and the schools and the sites that they're serving currently, broken down by counselor. So you can see that the vacant positions, we still have some schools that are in need of some Asian Human Services support, and once those positions are staffed, we'll spread out those resources to the schools that do not have an AHS counselor at this time. In terms of the Q1 update for Asian Human Services, total hours of service they provided so far in Q1 in terms of direct hours was 288. And what does that mean by direct hours? There's a breakdown there. Direct hours consist of both individual and family counseling, consultation with staff related to students, small group interventions, family community support. In terms of the indirect hours that AHS has provided so far in Q1, we have 215 total hours of intervention development, staff meetings, helping with recess, lunch, bus duty, and then just general school support as needed as well. So there's the breakdown in terms of the hours that AHS has provided. Next slide will show you the total number of students that have benefited so far from AHS support. Next slide, please, Lee. Thank you. And this is a bar graph. 36 total students so far through the program. And remember, oftentimes these are elementary students, so oftentimes when they're providing services, these are elementary and middle school students, so oftentimes when they're providing services, they're working with not only the student, they're working with siblings, they're working with the family, they're working with any type of crisis that family may be going through as well. So we have a breakdown here of the grade levels of those 36 students of where they're at. Same process in terms of my conversations with Asian Human Services. They are continuing to get referrals for students who need this type of support. They are continuing to recruit and hire. We actually started the school year with 6 of our 6 AHS counselors on staff, and unfortunately they had 2 that sought out some other opportunities. So they're trying to fill those 2 vacancies at this point. And that is it for Asian Human Services.
When can the actual bodies of Asian, when can they come?
We can have them come to the next Q2 report out if you like. They were available this evening via phone. I don't think they're still available, but they were available via phone if they needed to answer any questions for you. And if you have any questions, I can definitely get them to them for you, and then have Nick get that information back to the board if you wish.
So they're actually in the buildings now?
100%.
Okay.
Besides the vacancies that they have, they're in the buildings. And one thing that's different about Asian Human Services is their services not only happen during the school day, their services happen in evenings, their services happen on weekends, their services happen pretty much where they're needed, when they're needed.
So if I did my math right, there's about 36 students being serviced?
36 students being serviced in total. But obviously there's a lot that goes into, again, as I said, when they're working with a particular student, they're, it could be siblings that are involved as well. It could be parents that need some additional support and resources as well. So they tackle the whole gamut when they're dealing with a family.
I got you.
Just a quick question, and you can take this and deliver it to us afterwards, but can they go into a little bit about what they do on a recess, lunch, and bus duty level? Like, just if they can unpack that for us?
Sure.
And just give a little slide on what that means.
Sure. My sense is that they're just providing the school with some additional support. If schools need help on recess duty, bus duties, those kinds of things. I know, I'm trying to think back of some of the things that they did where they were going above and beyond last year, assisting with schools, assisting parents with getting like legal support, assisting parents with getting housing allowance support, those types of things during the pandemic. So, their their scope is pretty wide in terms of what they provide to students and families. They don't just focus directly on the counseling. If they see that there's a need and parents or families have additional support that they need, they try to network them and connect them with other agencies to help them as well. So for that question though, Ms. Leguizamo, it's supporting the schools when they're there if the schools need help with certain supervisory duties or whatever the case may be.
Okay, I just gonna put it out there. I take a little bit of issue with that, right? Because we are paying Asian Human Services specifically for their social emotional piece of this. So that's why I really just wanted to have the understanding, just unpack it a little bit more. Like, how does that get into their realm, really, right? Because, I mean, hourly and minutely. Like I'd like for them to be, there's a lot of students out there, and if they have time to do this, that isn't part of their realm, is what I'm thinking of, then I'd like for them to reposition themselves. So I'm just, that's why I asked for the full unpacked, just to be fully clear on that. And I apologize. I was just going to email it and just expect for the email
That's fine,
and just kind of go from there. But just wanted to put that out there. So
Yeah, I can reach
I'll
out.
leave it at that.
I can reach out and get more specifics around it. And that was it for Asian Human Services. Were there any questions on AHS?
Again, is like you said, I'm all for spending money. 6 counselors, 36 students, breaks down, and I know we saw the breakdown of what that is per school, but when we compare that caseload, again, to our social workers and other services, I go back to how are we supporting one another and making sure that all students are being serviced. So I would like to see those numbers grow. And to Ms. Leguizamo's point that they're being utilized most effectively. With that, I'd like, go ahead, Ms. Hannah.
Could you?
Thank you.
I made a request to get the actual numbers.
Yeah, and Dr. Nault said that he provide that. He sent it to the
Okay.
superintendent.
Yep. I can adjust the presentation with the numbers on it as soon as I go back.
Thank you, Dr. Nault.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to staff and our one parent that's still in the audience. This is the issue when you have a 3-hour meeting. And that, again, our time is not because we want to cut down the time because we're lazy. It's that we want to make sure that these meetings are important for the people that are involved. And when we go on for 3 hours, unfortunately, we don't have that same level of involvement. So with that, I'd like a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Riddle, second by Mr. McBride. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.